The early morning sun filters through the dense canopy of towering pines and ancient oaks, casting long fingers of golden light across the damp forest floor. The air hangs heavy with dew, filled with the earthy scent of pine resin and moss. Birds call in the distance, their songs weaving through the silence of the remote Black Pine National Park, a vast wilderness that stretches across 50,000 acres of untouched American heartland. A solitary figure moves with measured steps along a narrow trail. Marcus Reed, park ranger for 11 years, a man shaped by discipline and hardened by experience. His weathered face bears the marks of a life lived outdoors, deep lines etched around his eyes from years of squinting against the sun. At 51, his body remains strong, conditioned by daily patrols through this wilderness he calls home. The Forest Service uniform he wears is impeccably maintained, badges and patches precisely positioned, a habit carried over from his military days. His boots sink slightly into the moss-covered path as he advances forward, each step part of a well-practiced routine. The weight of his pack and utility belt, carrying his radio, first aid kit, and the Glock 22 sidearm issued to all federal rangers, feels as natural as an extension of his own body. The morning light catches on his wedding band, a simple gold circle he continues to wear 5 years after his wife's passing. The forest breathes around him in its ancient rhythm, a sanctuary of predictability that has become his refuge from a world that once shattered around him. Here, in this cathedral of pines, Marcus has found a semblance of peace after the chaos of war and personal tragedy. The rhythmic crunch of his boots on the forest floor matches his heartbeat, steady, reliable, controlled. But today, something feels different. A subtle shift in the air, a tension that prickles at the back of his neck. Years of military training have taught him to trust these instincts. The birds have gone quiet. The breeze that normally whispers through the pines has stilled. The forest is holding its breath. As he rounds a bend near a dry creek bed, something catches his eye. Just ahead, nestled between two massive trees that must have stood for centuries, stands an unusual structure. At first glance, it resembles storm debris, a pile of fallen branches tangled together by chance. But as Marcus moves closer, his breath catches in his throat. The formation is far too deliberate, too symmetrical to be natural. It's a nest, enormous in size, woven from thick branches and fallen limbs with eerie precision. It stands almost as tall as his shoulders and stretches at least 10 feet across. The branches aren't simply piled, but intricately woven, some bent at angles that would require significant force. Marcus freezes, scanning the area with the heightened awareness of both predator and prey. The silence has deepened, becoming a tangible presence. No rustling leaves, no distant calls of wildlife. The usual vibrancy of the forest is absent, as if the woods themselves are holding their breath. He steps cautiously around the perimeter of the nest, noting the intricate weaving. Whoever or whatever built this had strength, dexterity, and purpose. No bird in the region could account for this scale. Not even the largest eagles create structures this massive. Then he sees it, half buried beneath the outer rim of the nest, a piece of fabric, stained and sun-bleached. He reaches down and carefully pulls it free. It's a fragment of clothing, perhaps from a jacket, with a dull metal zipper still attached, the kind found on outdoor gear designed for harsh weather. As he examines it closer, he notices dark stains that can only be blood, long dried but unmistakable to his trained eye. The fabric is torn, not cut, suggesting a struggle rather than an accident. His experienced eyes pick up something else, fresh boot prints in the soft earth nearby. They're deep, recently made, leading toward a denser part of the woods. The tread pattern is distinctive, not standard hiking boots, but something with a more specialized design. Military or tactical gear, he would guess. Marcus kneels down, his heart rate increasing. These aren't his prints. Someone else has been here, and recently. The soil's still damp where it's been compressed, suggesting the visitor was here no more than a few hours ago, perhaps during the pre-dawn darkness. His attention shifts back to the nest. Using his flashlight, he peers deeper inside where the shadows are thickest. Something metallic glints in the beam of light, partially buried under smaller twigs and debris. Reaching in carefully, he retrieves a smartphone with a shattered screen. Remarkably, it still has power. The screen flickers to life at his touch, revealing a voice recording app still open. The timestamp shows a recording made 2 days ago at 2:17 a.m. Marcus presses play. Through bursts of static comes a man's voice, panicked and breathless. "They're coming. Tracy, 14. Nobody knows. Please help." The recording cuts off abruptly, leaving only silence in the weight of the unspoken terror. Marcus plays it again, focusing on the background noises, a rustling sound, heavy breathing, and what might be distant footsteps crushing leaves. Marcus looks up at the canopy of trees, then back at the strange nest with its hidden secrets. Something is very wrong in his forest, something that has remained hidden for far too long. The systematic construction of the nest, the blood-stained fabric, the desperate recording, none of it fits with the natural order of these woods he knows so intimately. Without hesitation, he reaches for his radio to call the local sheriff's office, unaware that this discovery marks only the beginning of a nightmare that has been decades in the making. His voice is steady as he reports his location and findings. Years of crisis management keeping any alarm from his tone. As he waits for a response, Marcus takes photographs of the nest, the boot prints, and the surrounding area. Evidence, documentation, the habits of a man who believes in systems and procedures, even as a voice in the back of his mind whispers that this goes beyond normal protocols. The sheriff's department headquarters sits at the edge of Pinecrest, a small town that had seen better days. The brick building, constructed in the 1970s, stands as a testament to functionality over aesthetics, its windows small and offices cramped. American and state flags hang limply in the still summer air, their colors faded from years of sun exposure. Inside, Sheriff Dave Holloway leans back in his chair, its worn leather creaking under his substantial frame. At 62, Holloway has the look of a man who once commanded respect, but has settled into comfortable authority. His uniform strains slightly at the buttons, his badge polished to a shine that his ambition lost years ago. On the wall behind him hang commendations and photographs, Holloway shaking hands with two different governors, receiving awards for community service. "So you found some kind of big bird's nest in a dropped phone. That what you're telling me, Reed?" Marcus stands straight, military posture never quite leaving him even after all these years. His ranger uniform is dusty from the forest, but still neat and professional. He places the evidence bags containing the fabric, phone, and photographs on the sheriff's desk. "This isn't natural, Sheriff. No bird makes nests that size. The fabric has blood on it, and the voice on that recording sounds terrified." Holloway barely glances at the evidence, instead fixing Marcus with a gaze that communicates boredom more than concern. His large hands, spotted with age, rest comfortably on his substantial belly. "Probably hunters. You know they come through those back trails even though they shouldn't. One of them got scratched up, tore his jacket, mystery solved." "Sir, with respect, the recording mentions Tracy 14. Could be someone trying to say track 14 or some location. Worth investigating." The sheriff's expression hardens, a subtle shift that doesn't escape Marcus's notice. Something flickers in the older man's eyes. Recognition, perhaps, or wariness. "We've got 3 domestic disputes, a string of store break-ins, and I'm down 2 deputies on medical leave. I don't have resources to chase ghost stories in the woods based on some garbled recording." Marcus feels the familiar frustration rising. "I can provide exact coordinates. If someone's in trouble, we're done here, Reed. Stick to counting trees and chasing off campers who don't douse their fires properly. That's your job. This is mine." The dismissal is abrupt, final. Holloway turns his attention to paperwork on his desk, a clear signal that the conversation is over. His wedding ring catches the fluorescent light as he reaches for a pen, a heavy gold band with some kind of insignia that Marcus can't quite make out. Outside the station, Marcus stands in the parking lot, the sun beating down on his shoulders. The dismissal stings, but doesn't surprise him. Relations between park services and local law enforcement have always been strained in these parts. Jurisdiction disputes, different priorities, the eternal tension between federal and local authority. He looks down at the evidence bags the sheriff returned to him. Something about Holloway's reaction feels off, too quick to dismiss, too eager to end the conversation. And that moment of recognition when Track 14 was mentioned, that wasn't nothing. Marcus slides into his Forest Service truck, the green paint dusty from the park roads. The vehicle is older but meticulously maintained, much like Marcus himself. As he places the key in the ignition, his phone buzzes with a message from Brandon Davis, the youngest ranger on staff. Found another one. Same design. Northridge, Sector 7. The second nest sits in a small clearing, the morning light slanting through the trees to illuminate its bizarre structure. It's nearly identical to the first, massive, intricately woven, with the same unsettling precision. The surrounding vegetation shows signs of having been deliberately cleared to make room for the construction. Brandon stands nearby, his youthful face troubled. At 26, he's the newest addition to the Ranger team, enthusiastic and earnest in a way that reminds Marcus of himself decades ago. His uniform still has the crisp newness of recent issue, not yet softened by years of service. I was doing the northern perimeter check when I spotted it. Wouldn't have noticed if the sun hadn't hit it just right. Marcus circles the structure, his experienced eyes taking in every detail. No signs of wildlife nearby, the same unnatural silence that surrounded the first nest. The ground here is harder, less likely to show footprints, but Marcus spots faint depressions that suggest recent human activity. Any tracks, items inside? Brandon shakes his head. Nothing I could see, but I didn't want to disturb it until you got here. The younger ranger shifts his weight, clearly uncomfortable. This isn't normal, is it? I mean, I've never seen anything like this in all my training. Marcus peers inside, using his flashlight to penetrate the shadows. Unlike the first nest, this one appears empty at first glance. But as he looks more carefully, he notices something tucked into the weaving near the bottom, something that catches the light. Carefully reaching in, he extracts a wristwatch. The face is cracked, the band frayed. The hands are frozen at 2:47. He turns it over. Engraved on the back are 3 letters, RLM. You know what this means, boss? Marcus stares at the initials, a cold feeling settling in his stomach. Not yet, but 2 nests with personal items can't be coincidence. Brandon leans in to examine the watch. You think someone's leaving these things for us to find? Some kind of message? Or warnings? Marcus carefully places the watch in an evidence bag. Brandon, I need you to keep this between us for now. Don't file an official report yet. The younger ranger looks surprised. But protocol says, I know what protocol says, but I took similar evidence to Sheriff Holloway this morning and hit a brick wall. Something's not right here. Brandon's expression shifts from confusion to concern. You think this goes beyond just some strange structures? Marcus looks back at the nest, its twisted branches reaching toward the sky like grasping fingers. I think we need to be very careful about who we trust with this information. Back at the ranger station, Marcus sits at his computer, the afternoon light slanting through the windows of the modest building. The watch rests on his desk, its broken face seeming to stare back at him accusingly. On the wall beside him hangs a map of Black Pine National Park, its 50,000 acres divided into color-coded sectors. His fingers move across the keyboard, searching through missing persons databases. Hours pass as he narrows parameters, focuses on the region, cross-references with the initials LM. The building grows quiet as other rangers complete their shifts and head home, leaving Marcus alone with his search. Finally, a match appears on the screen. Robert Lee Mercer, 34, reported missing 2 years ago. Local journalist known for investigative pieces on environmental violations and political corruption. Last seen heading into Black Pine Park researching a story. The case status, open but inactive. The photograph shows a man with intense eyes and a serious expression. Press credentials hanging around his neck. Dark hair, beard neatly trimmed, a look of determination in his gaze. Not just a random hiker or tourist, but someone who might have been in these woods with purpose. Marcus leans back in his chair, mind racing with implications. A missing journalist. Strange structures in the woods. Blood-stained fabric. The pieces suggest something deliberate, something sinister, something that powerful people might want to keep hidden. His phone rings, interrupting his thoughts. An unfamiliar number. Marcus hesitates, then answers. Ranger Reed. Is this Marcus Reed? The ranger who found my brother's watch? The voice belongs to a woman, tense with barely contained emotion. A voice that has carried grief for a long time. Your brother? Robert Mercer. The sheriff's office called, said you found his watch in the woods. Is it true after all this time? Marcus glances at the watch on his desk, the engraved RLM suddenly having a face, a story, a family searching for answers. The sheriff's office called her? After dismissing his concerns so thoroughly? Ms. Mercer, I think we should meet. Sarah Mercer sits across from Marcus at the small diner on the outskirts of town, her hands wrapped around a coffee cup that has long gone cold. At 38, she carries herself with the careful composure of someone who has learned to live with unresolved grief. Her dark hair is pulled back, revealing features that echo her brother's from the photograph. Same determined set of the jaw, same watchful eyes. The diner is nearly empty in the late afternoon lull. Just an elderly couple in a corner booth and a trucker nursing coffee at the counter. Country music plays softly from outdated speakers, a song about loss and remembrance. The police investigation went nowhere. They searched for 3 weeks, then suddenly everything slowed down. Eventually they just stopped looking, said he probably fell into a ravine or was attacked by an animal. Her voice carries the weariness of someone who has told this story too many times, to too many people who couldn't or wouldn't help. Marcus slides the watch across the table in an evidence bag. Sarah takes it with trembling hands, her professional composure cracking for a moment as she recognizes this tangible connection to her missing brother. I gave him this for his 30th birthday. He always wore it. She turns it over, finger tracing the initials she must have seen engraved countless times before. Where exactly did you find this? In a structure in the woods, something constructed from branches and vegetation, but far too large and complex to be made by any animal in this region. Sarah looks up sharply. A nest? You found it in some kind of giant nest? The question catches Marcus off guard. Yes, how did you know that? Because Robert mentioned them in his notes. He called them markers or signals, said they weren't natural, that someone was building them deliberately. Can you tell me what he was working on when he disappeared? Sarah's eyes shift, scanning the diner before lowering her voice. A story about what he called the buried history of this region. He was looking into connections between land development deals, missing environmental impact reports, and a pattern of disappearances dating back decades. She reaches into her bag and pulls out a worn notebook. This is a copy of his research notes. I made duplicates after he went missing. There are references to something called Tract 14 or Tracy 14. His handwriting was always terrible. Marcus opens the notebook, flipping through pages filled with names, dates, and hastily scrawled observations. One page shows a rough map of the park with several areas circled in red. Another lists names with dates beside them. People who went missing in or near the park over a span of 40 years. He told me he'd found something big, something people would kill to keep quiet. That was the last time we spoke. The weight of her words hangs in the air between them. Marcus closes the notebook, his mind already connecting dots, seeing patterns. Ms. Mercer, there, please. Wait, I can't make any promises, but I'm going to look into this. These structures I've found, they're not natural, and the fact that your brother's watch was in one of them, you believe something happened to him, something deliberate. Marcus chooses his words carefully, aware of the implications. I believe the truth is still out there in those woods, and I'm going to find it. Sarah studies him as if assessing his resolve, his trustworthiness. Why do you care? Most people hear about Robert and just see another statistic, another person who went missing in the wilderness. The question strikes at something deep within Marcus. He thinks of his military service, of comrades lost, of his wife Amy and the accident that took her, of promises made and kept. Because the forest is my responsibility, and because I know what it's like to lose someone and never get the answers you deserve. The cabin where Marcus lives sits a quarter-mile from the main ranger station, a simple structure of weathered wood and quiet solitude. Inside, the space is spare but comfortable, a testament to a life pared down to essentials. The main room serves as both living area and workspace, with a solid wooden desk positioned near windows that look out into the forest. A bookshelf holds volumes on forestry, wildlife, and military history. On the wall hangs a framed photograph of a smiling woman with auburn hair, Amy Reed, his wife of 12 years before the accident took her. Their wedding photo sits on the desk. Marcus in dress uniform, Amy radiant in white. They'd met when she came to document the park's rare butterfly species for a conservation magazine. 6 months later, they were married. 5 years ago, her car went off the mountain road leading to their cabin. The investigation called it an accident, brake failure on a treacherous curve. Marcus spreads Robert Mercer's notebook open on his desk, alongside maps of the park and the evidence he's collected. He works methodically, marking locations of the nests on the map, cross-referencing with Mercer's notes. Several names appear repeatedly in the journalist's writings: Blackwood Development Company, County Commissioner James Harlan, Sheriff Dave Holloway. Notes about land deals, zoning changes, environmental waivers granted despite objections. One page contains a hastily written note: follow the money. H takes orders from B, old connections, goes back to camp days. Another page mentions bodies in the ground with a question mark beside it. A diagram shows connections between Blackwood executives and local officials. Lines drawn between names, dates of meetings, amounts of money. Robert had been building a case for corruption, for a network of influence that stretched from corporate boardrooms to government offices. Marcus works late into the night, the cabin growing cold as the fire in the small stove burns down to embers. The more he reads, the more a pattern emerges, a shadow network operating just beneath the surface of legitimate authority. A section about Amy catches his eye, notes about her last photography assignment before her death. She'd been documenting environmental impact in an area Blackwood wanted to develop. Robert had written, A-read photos would have stopped the project. Convenient timing. Marcus stares at the words, a cold sensation spreading through his chest. He'd never questioned the official report, had never wanted to consider that her death might not have been an accident. Outside, the forest stands dark and watchful. The beam of his desk lamp creates a small island of light in a sea of darkness. Somewhere in those woods, secrets have been buried for decades, and someone is willing to kill to keep them hidden. The next morning dawns gray and misty, the kind of day where the boundary between earth and sky blurs into obscurity. Marcus heads to the ranger station early, determined to access records that might shed light on this Tract 14. Richard Turner, park director, intercepts him in the hallway. At 65, Turner projects authority with his silver hair and tailored uniform, every inch the government official who's risen through bureaucratic ranks. His office is at the end of the hall, larger than the others, with a view of the mountains beyond the visitor center. Read a word. Turner's office speaks of a man who values appearances. Awards and certificates line the walls. Photos of handshakes with politicians displayed prominently. An American flag stands in one corner. A carved eagle perches on a bookshelf of regulation manuals and environmental impact studies. Sheriff Holloway called me yesterday. Says you're stirring up trouble about some old missing persons case. Marcus stands at parade rest, a habit from military days. I'm investigating unusual structures found within park boundaries, sir. They may be connected to the disappearance of Robert Mercer 2 years ago. Turner's expression tightens, lines deepening around his mouth. Your job is to maintain trails, assist visitors, and protect wildlife, not play detective on cold cases. With respect, sir, if someone is building structures and potentially harming people within park boundaries, that falls under my jurisdiction. Turner rises from his desk, moving to the window. His reflection in the glass shows a man accustomed to authority, to being obeyed without question. These structures are probably just debris piles from last year's storms, or maybe some campers playing around. Nothing worth disrupting park operations over. Marcus feels a familiar resistance building. Sir, I found blood-stained fabric in a missing man's watch. That warrants investigation. Turner turns, fixing Marcus with a hard stare. You've been a good ranger, Reed. Reliable, dedicated. Don't throw that away chasing conspiracy theories. It's not a theory when there's physical evidence, sir. Turner leans forward, his voice lowering. Focus on your actual duties, Reed. I'd hate to see a good ranger waste his career chasing shadows. The threat hangs in the air. thinly veiled but unmistakable. That will be all. Outside Turner's office, Marcus pauses, a cold certainty settling in his gut. Two authority figures, both unusually quick to dismiss evidence of potential crimes, both appearing uncomfortable with the name Robert Mercer, both more concerned with shutting down his investigation than addressing the actual evidence. Brandon approaches, keeping his voice low. Everything okay with the director? Just a difference of opinion on priorities. Brandon glances around to ensure they're alone in the hallway, the sounds of the visitor center a distant murmur. I pulled those old survey maps you asked about. They're in your office. The yellowed maps spread across Marcus's desk reveal the park's boundaries as they existed in different decades. Brandon points to a section on the oldest map, dated 1952. This area was added to the park in 1963. Before that, it was federal land, but not part of the park system. Marcus studies the area, remote, mountainous, far from established trails. A notation in faded type reads, Fed Correctional Facility Tract 14. A prison? Out there? Not exactly. I did some digging in the digital archives. It was classified as a correctional work camp during the Korean War era. Officially decommissioned in 1962, then the land was transferred to the National Park Service. Brandon taps a folder beside the maps. There's hardly any documentation about the facility itself. Just transfer paperwork, boundary adjustments, that sort of thing. It's like someone went through and removed anything substantive. Marcus traces the location with his finger. Are there any structures still standing? According to records, everything was demolished before the handover, but what? Brandon hesitates, his youthful face troubled. My grandfather worked maintenance here in the 70s. He used to tell stories about places in the deep woods where rangers weren't supposed to go. Said there were old buildings the demolition crews couldn't reach because of the terrain. He lowers his voice further. He also mentioned strange noises at night. Said some of the older rangers refused to patrol certain sections after dark. Marcus looks up at the wall map of the current park. The area in question lies in the most remote northwestern quadrant, at least 10 miles from any maintained trail. I need to see it. The terrain grows increasingly difficult as Marcus pushes deeper into the northwestern quadrant. No trails exist here, just wilderness that has reclaimed whatever human presence once scarred it. Massive rock formations rise between dense stands of pine and oak, creating natural barriers that would have isolated any facility built here. The pack on his back contains essentials for an overnight stay if necessary: water, food, first aid, emergency shelter. His GPS device marks his position, though the dense canopy occasionally interferes with the signal. The weight of his sidearm against his hip offers some reassurance in this isolated place. Hours pass as he climbs ridges and descends into valleys, following the route he calculated based on the old maps. The forest here feels different, older, untouched, with massive trees that block much of the sunlight. No bird song breaks the silence. No rustle of small animals in the underbrush. By mid-afternoon, he reaches a ridge overlooking a small, hidden valley. Below, barely visible through decades of overgrowth, stands a pair of rusted iron gates. Marcus makes his way down the slope, boots sliding on damp leaves and loose soil. As he approaches the gates, details emerge from the veil of vegetation. The gates hang askew on broken hinges, their original black paint now a patchwork of rust. Above them, a metal sign hangs by a single bolt, its lettering barely legible through layers of corrosion. Correctional Camp Number 14, federal property, no trespassing. Beyond the gates, a narrow road disappears into the forest, now little more than a suggestion beneath years of fallen leaves and encroaching undergrowth. Marcus slips through the gap between the gates, their metal groaning faintly at the disturbance. The sound echoes briefly before being swallowed by the unnatural silence that pervades this place. The camp reveals itself gradually as he follows the old road. Low, crumbling buildings line what was once a central yard, their roofs partially collapsed, windows long since shattered. Nature reclaims them inch by inch, vines crawling up walls, saplings pushing through concrete foundations. A collapsed watchtower leans precariously at the edge of the grounds, its wood rotted and splintering. Rows of smaller barrack-like structures stretch beyond, their doors hanging open like broken mouths. Marcus moves cautiously, every sense alert. The silence here is complete. No birds, no insects, no rustling leaves. It's the silence of a place that wildlife avoids, a place that carries some invisible warning that keeps nature at bay. Inside one of the larger buildings, what might have once been an administration office, Marcus finds overturned desks and broken filing cabinets. Most documents have long since rotted away or been carried off by animals. But in a metal cabinet whose drawer has rusted shut, he discovers a cache of papers protected from the elements. Using his knife, he pries the drawer open. Inside are personnel files, security reports, and a leather-bound logbook. The pages are yellowed and brittle, but much of the text remains legible. The files contain photographs, black and white mugshots of men in prison uniforms, numbers stamped beneath their chins. Each file lists a name, crime, and date of entry. None show dates of release. Most disturbing are the notations in red ink on certain files: Special Project or Section D candidate. The logbook contains daily reports from camp officers, mundane entries about supply deliveries and maintenance issues. But toward the back, the tone shifts. The handwriting becomes hurried, less formal. 3 more transfers from Section D last night. No paperwork provided. Dr. B says questions not welcome. Second incident this month in the East Compound. Guards report noises not made by any man. Request for additional security denied. Transport scheduled for unmarked site number 3. Coordinates on attached map. No witnesses. Attached to the final pages is a folded map of the surrounding forest. 7 locations are marked with red circles, coordinates carefully noted beside each one. Marcus checks his GPS. 2 of these locations match exactly where he found the strange nests. As he photographs the documents, a sound breaks the silence, the crack of a branch somewhere outside the building. Marcus freezes, listening intently. Nothing follows, but the hair on the back of his neck stands up. That wasn't the random noise of settling wood or falling debris. That was a footstep. He quickly gathers the most important documents and slips them into his pack. As he prepares to leave, his boot strikes something that rings hollow beneath the debris-covered floor. Kneeling, Marcus clears away layers of dirt and paper to reveal a metal hatch, a ring handle recessed into its surface. It takes considerable strength to pull it open, the hinges protesting after decades of disuse. Below is a concrete stairwell descending into darkness. The beam of his flashlight reveals nothing but stairs vanishing into the gloom. A cold draft rises from the opening, carrying with it the faint smell of dampness and something else. Antiseptic, chemical, the ghost of institutional cleanliness. The decision weighs on him. Venture into the unknown passage alone, or return with proper equipment and possibly backup. Caution wins out. He closes the hatch and conceals it once more under debris, marking its GPS coordinates in his device. Outside, the day has begun its slow fade toward evening, long shadows stretching across the abandoned camp. As Marcus makes his way back toward the gates, he notices something that sends a chill through him. Fresh boot prints in a patch of mud not his own. Someone else has been here recently, and based on the direction of the prints, they arrived after he did. Marcus quickens his pace, using all his training to move silently through the forest. The sensation of being watched presses down on him like a physical weight. Twice he stops, scanning the trees around him, seeing nothing but feeling the unmistakable presence of eyes tracking his movement. The journey back takes longer than expected as he deliberately chooses a circuitous route, doubling back several times to ensure he isn't being followed. Night has fallen completely by the time he reaches the trailhead where he parked his truck. The vehicle sits alone in the small clearing, exactly as he left it. But as he approaches, his flashlight beam catches something white under the windshield wiper. A folded piece of paper. With cautious fingers, he unfolds it. The message is written in crude block letters, pressed hard enough to leave indentations in the paper. Stop looking, last warning. Back at his cabin, Marcus spreads the documents from Camp 14 across his desk. The watch belonging to Robert Mercer sits beside them, its broken face a silent witness to some unknown violence. He uploads the photographs he's taken to his computer, backing them up to an external drive. The map with its 7 marked locations becomes his focus. 2 match the nests he's found. 5 more remain to be discovered. The logbook entries suggest something far beyond a normal correctional facility. References to special projects, to unmarked transport sites, to incidents that needed to be contained. Whatever happened at Camp 14, it wasn't simply about rehabilitating prisoners. His phone rings. Sarah Mercer. I've been trying to reach you all day. Something's happened. What is it? Someone broke into my house last night. They took everything related to Robert. His backup computer, his research files, everything. The police said it was probably just a burglary, but they didn't take my laptop or TV, only Robert's things. Marcus glances at the warning note on his desk. Are you somewhere safe now? I'm staying with a friend, Marcus. What's going on? First you find Robert's watch, now this. I think your brother found something dangerous. Something powerful people want to keep hidden. I found an abandoned federal facility in the park today, Camp 14. It was some kind of prison or work camp in the 50s and 60s. But I think it might have been used for something else too. Sarah's voice drops to a whisper. That name was in Robert's notes. He mentioned something about medical experiments, bodies that disappeared. Listen to me carefully. Don't tell anyone what I've just told you. Keep a bag packed in case you need to leave quickly. I'll call you tomorrow once I've gone through these documents more thoroughly. After hanging up, Marcus sits in silence, the weight of what he's uncovering pressing down on him. People have died to keep these secrets, Robert Mercer almost certainly among them. And now whoever guards those secrets knows that Marcus is looking into them. He moves to the window, pulling back the curtain slightly to look out at the dark line of trees surrounding his cabin. The forest that has been his sanctuary for years now feels like a vast conspiracy of silence, harboring decades of secrets in its depths. Something catches his eye, a brief flicker of light among the distant trees. Too steady for lightning, too focused for a passing car on the distant road. A flashlight, moving through the forest, heading in his direction. Marcus steps back from the window, turning off the lights in his cabin. In the sudden darkness, he moves to a locked cabinet where he keeps his personal firearms. The weight of his old service pistol feels reassuring in his hand. A Colt M1911, the same model he carried in Afghanistan. He positions himself where he can observe the approach through the window without being seen. Minutes pass, marked only by the soft ticking of the clock and his own measured breathing. The light appears again, closer now, moving with purpose through the trees. Then another light joins it, and a third. Multiple people, approaching from different angles, using a tactical formation he recognizes from his military days. Marcus backs away from the window, mind racing through options. His truck is parked outside, a potential escape route, but he would be exposed the moment he stepped out the door. The cabin has only two exits, front door and back. Both would be watched. A sharp crack echoes through the cabin as something strikes the front door, not a knock but an impact. Wood splinters around the lock. Marcus moves quickly to the rear of the cabin, to the trap door hidden beneath a rug that leads to a small storage cellar, a feature he added after moving in, inspired by his time in combat zones where escape routes were essential. He drops down into the darkness just as the front door bursts open. The cellar is cramped but functional, with a narrow tunnel that leads to an exit point 20 yards from the cabin, concealed by brush and designed for exactly this scenario. Heavy footsteps move through the cabin above, 3 sets at least. Men's voices, low and urgent, though he can't make out the words. The sound of drawers being opened, papers shuffled, furniture moved. Check everything, find those documents. What about him? He's here somewhere, keep looking. Through a small vent in the cellar wall, Marcus can see booted feet moving around his truck. The beam of a flashlight sweeps across the ground, searching. In the confined space, a memory surfaces. Afghanistan, hiding in a storage bunker, as insurgents search the compound above. The same controlled breathing, the same heightened awareness, the same calculated patience. Minutes stretch into an hour. Eventually, the voices fade, the footsteps retreat. Engines start in the distance. Vehicles he hadn't heard arrive. Marcus waits another 30 minutes before cautiously emerging from the cellar. His cabin has been systematically searched, drawers emptied onto the floor, mattress slashed open, even air vents removed from the walls. On his desk, Where the Camp 14 documents had been spread out, now lies a single sheet of paper. Another message in the same crude handwriting. Final chance, stop or disappear like the others. The documents from Camp 14 are gone, but not the backups on his external drive, which he had hidden in the cellar, nor the copies he'd already emailed to himself through an encrypted account. Marcus sits amid the destruction of his home, the warning note in his hand. They knew where he lived. They knew what he'd found. They had resources and organization, but they hadn't killed him when they clearly had the opportunity. That meant they were still operating within some constraints. Perhaps fear of an investigation if a federal employee turned up dead. Perhaps concern about how much he'd already shared with others. Either way, he had a narrow window to act before their calculation changed. As dawn breaks over the forest, casting long shadows through the pines, Marcus Reed makes his decision. He will not stop. He will not be intimidated. Whatever secrets lie buried in Black Pine National Park, he will uncover them. For Robert Mercer, for the truth, and for justice long denied. The game has changed now. No longer is he merely investigating strange structures in his forest. He's challenging a power that has operated in darkness for decades, a power that kills to protect its secrets. He gathers what he needs: evidence, weapons, supplies. The hunt has begun, but he is no longer the hunter. He is the hunted. Morning light filters through the broken blinds of Marcus Reed's cabin, illuminating the destruction left by the previous night's intruders. Shards of glass glitter on the wooden floor. Books and papers lie scattered, drawers emptied, furniture overturned in the methodical search for evidence. Marcus moves through the wreckage with grim determination, gathering what he needs. The warning note still sits on his desk, a crude threat scrawled by someone who believes intimidation will succeed where violence has not yet been attempted. They don't know Marcus Reed very well. In the military, Marcus learned that survival often depends on preparation and fortification. His cabin will become his command center, his fortress in this undeclared war. He drags a heavy bookcase in front of one window, secures the back door with additional locks, and installs motion-activated security cameras at strategic points around the property. Small, inconspicuous devices that will alert him to any approach. As he works, memories of Afghanistan surface unbidden. The constant vigilance, the knowledge that enemies could appear from any direction. But unlike the war, where he had a squadron of brothers in arms at his back, here he stands virtually alone. The hidden storage cellar beneath the cabin floor becomes his secure archive. He creates multiple copies of the Camp 14 documents, the photographs of the nests, and Robert Mercer's notes. Some he hides in waterproof containers buried at marked locations in the forest. Others he seals in an envelope addressed to Sarah Mercer, to be delivered if anything happens to him. By midday, the cabin is transformed. Part home, part bunker, part investigation center. Maps cover one wall, with the 7 locations from the Camp 14 documents marked in red. Strings connect them to photographs, to names, to dates spanning decades. Marcus steps back, surveying his work. The map reveals a pattern not immediately obvious. The 7 locations form a rough circle around the old campsite, each approximately the same distance from the central point. Not random, deliberate, a perimeter. His phone buzzes with a message from Brandon. Holloway asking questions about you at the station. Says you're on leave. True? Marcus frowns. He hadn't requested leave. Turner must have arranged it, a bureaucratic maneuver to keep him away from the park, from other rangers who might help him. Stay safe, he texts back. Don't get involved for now. Brandon's reply comes quickly. Too late. Already found something. Need to meet. The diner sits just off the highway, far enough from Pinecrest to avoid unwanted attention. Its neon sign blinks intermittently, the word open flickering like an uncertain invitation. The lunch rush has ended, leaving the place nearly deserted. Just a waitress wiping down tables and an elderly man nursing a cup of coffee at the counter. Brandon sits in a corner booth, his ranger uniform replaced by civilian clothes. Jeans and a flannel shirt that make him look even younger than his 26 years. A laptop sits closed on the table before him, his fingers drumming nervously beside it. Thanks for coming, he says as Marcus slides into the seat opposite him. I wasn't sure who else to call. What did you find? Brandon glances around before opening the laptop. After you left yesterday, I kept digging into the archives. Found something weird buried in the quarterly budget reports from the 60s. He turns the screen to show a spreadsheet of faded numbers. Look at this line item. Continued site maintenance. Tracked 14 facilities. It shows up every quarter from 1963 to 1975, 12 years after the camp was supposedly demolished. Marcus leans forward, studying the entries. Someone was maintaining buildings that officially didn't exist anymore. Exactly. And the funding came through a special account managed directly by the regional director's office, bypassing normal park appropriations. Brandon pulls up another document, a scanned personnel file from 1972. Then I found this guy, Dr. William Blackwood, listed as Special Scientific Advisor to the Park Service. His office? Tract 14. The name hits Marcus like a physical blow. Blackwood? As in Blackwood Development Company? Brandon nods. The very same. Founder of the company was Victor Blackwood, William's brother. The families owned half the county for generations. Marcus's mind races, connecting dots. Robert Mercer had been investigating Blackwood Development. The company appeared repeatedly in his notes, linked to suspicious land deals and environmental violations. There's more, Brandon continues, lowering his voice further. I tracked down maintenance records, supply requisitions. Whatever was happening at Track 14 continued long after the official closure. And get this, special medical supplies, laboratory equipment, security upgrades. This wasn't just maintaining old buildings. This was an active facility. Why would the Park Service be running a medical research facility in the middle of nowhere? Brandon's expression darkens. That's just it. I don't think it was the Park Service, not really. I think they were providing cover for something else. Something government, but not the kind that shows up in public records. A chill runs down Marcus's spine as he recalls entries from the Camp 14 logbook, references to special projects, and unmarked transport sites. This could be dangerous, Brandon. These people don't mess around. They've already broken into my cabin, threatened me. Brandon's youthful face hardens with resolve. My grandfather used to wake up screaming about what he saw in those woods. Whatever happened back then, it destroyed him. I need to know why. Marcus studies the younger man, recognizing the determination in his eyes. It's the same look he sees in the mirror each morning, to him, the unwillingness to let injustice stand no matter the personal cost. All right, but we do this carefully. No official reports, no using park resources. And Brandon, watch your back. These people have been operating in the shadows for decades. They won't appreciate the light we're shining. The local library's archive room smells of dust and aging paper, a small, windowless space tucked away in the basement. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead, casting a harsh glow over rows of filing cabinets and shelves laden with bound newspapers and town records. Marcus and Sarah Mercer sit at a worn wooden table, surrounded by stacks of local newspapers dating back to the 1950s and 60s. After 3 hours of methodical searching, patterns begin to emerge. Look at this, Sarah says, sliding a yellowed newspaper across the table. June 1957, 3 hikers missing in Pinecrest Forest. Then here, August same year. Search called off, hikers presumed lost to wilderness. Marcus examines the articles. Any connection to Camp 14? Not explicitly, but look at the location described. The Northern Ridge area not far from where the camp would have been. She pulls another newspaper from her stack. And here, 1962, mysterious lights reported in night sky over Pinecrest Woods. Witnesses described unusual activity near the restricted federal land. The year the camp was officially decommissioned. Sarah nods, excitement building in her scholarly voice. Exactly. And it continues, 1965, 1968, 1972, clusters of missing persons reports, strange phenomena, all centered around that same area of the forest. Then abruptly, in 1975, it all stops. What happened in 19? She pulls out a final article. Federal Land Management restructures regional operations. A dry, bureaucratic headline concealing whatever shift had occurred. This is when William Blackwood's name disappears from the park records. Marcus muses. Whatever operation they were running, it either ended or went even deeper underground. Sarah studies him, her dark eyes intense. You really think this connects to what happened to Robert? I think your brother stumbled onto something that's been hidden for decades. Something powerful people still want to keep buried. Sarah's hand moves unconsciously to touch the watch in her pocket. Her brother's watch, now returned to his family, but carrying the weight of unanswered questions. I've spent 2 years searching for answers, she says quietly. The police, the park service, the county officials, they all stonewalled me. They treated me like I was crazy for suggesting Robert's disappearance was anything but a hiking accident. You're not crazy, and neither was he. Sarah's professional composure cracks slightly. He called me the night before he disappeared. Said he'd found something in the woods that changed everything. That he finally had proof. He sounded excited but scared. Said if anything happened to him, I should look for his backup files. The ones that were stolen from your house. She nods. But Robert was paranoid about his work, occupational hazard for an investigative journalist. He always kept multiple backups. Hope flickers in Marcus's chest. You think there might be another copy somewhere? Maybe. He mentioned a safety deposit box once. I checked the local banks after he disappeared, but found nothing under his name. Marcus considers this. What about under your name or a pseudonym? Sarah's eyes widen. I never thought to check that. A subtle shift in the atmosphere makes Marcus glance toward the archive room's entrance. An older woman stands in the doorway, the librarian who had helped them access the archives earlier. But something in her posture has changed, her eyes darting nervously between them and something beyond the door. Sorry to interrupt, she says, her voice slightly too loud. We're closing in 15 minutes. It's only 3:30 p.m. The library doesn't close until 6 o'clock. Marcus catches Sarah's eye, a silent warning passing between them. They gather their materials unhurriedly, maintaining the pretense of normal research while Marcus positions himself to see through the doorway into the main library. A man in a sheriff's department uniform stands near the front desk, speaking quietly with another librarian. Not Holloway himself, but one of his deputies. The timing is too perfect for coincidence. Is there a back exit? Marcus asks softly. The librarian hesitates, then nods almost imperceptibly. Through the staff room, I'll show you. Minutes later, they slip out through a service entrance into an alley behind the library. The librarian, Margaret, according to her name tag, follows them out. You're looking into Camp 14, aren't you? She asks, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus tenses. You know about it? My father worked security there in the 60s. Never talked about what he saw, but he drank himself to death by 1970. Whatever happened in that place broke him. She glances nervously toward the street. Be careful. This town has secrets that go back generations. The Blackwoods, the sheriff, the county commissioners, they're all connected. They protect each other. Why are you helping us? Sarah asks. Margaret's face hardens with old grief. Because my brother went hiking in those woods in 1968 and never came back. They said he fell into a ravine. We weren't even allowed to see his body. She presses a small key into Marcus's hand. Storage room in the basement of the old post office. It's been abandoned for years, but some of us have kept things there. Evidence, records, things that might disappear if kept at home. Find what you need, then lock it up again. Before they can thank her, she slips back inside, the door closing with a soft click. The abandoned post office stands at the edge of town, a 2-story brick building with boarded windows and faded lettering above the entrance. Nature reclaims it inch by inch, vines crawling up the walls, weeds pushing through cracks in the concrete steps. Marcus and Sarah approach cautiously, circling around to the rear service entrance. The key Margaret provided opens a rusted lock with surprising ease, suggesting regular use despite the building's abandoned appearance. Inside, darkness and dust greet them. Flashlight beams cut through the gloom, revealing an interior frozen in time. Old sorting tables, empty mail slots, bulletin boards still displaying notices from the early 1990s when the facility closed. They find the basement stairs behind a door marked "Employees Only." The steps creak underfoot, wooden boards protesting after years of disuse. The basement itself is cavernous, much larger than the building above would suggest, with rows of metal shelving and storage lockers lining concrete walls. "For here," Sarah calls softly, her flashlight illuminating a section of lockers at the far end. Each bears a simple number, no names or identifications. The key fits locker 13. Inside, they find a collection of binders, loose papers, and several old VHS tapes, each carefully labeled with dates spanning from the 1960s to the early 2000s. "My God," Sarah whispers, pulling out a binder labeled 1987-1989, Land Acquisitions and Rezoning. This is a record of corruption going back decades. Marcus examines another file. Camp 14, Personnel Transfers, 1963-1975. Inside are photographs of men in military or scientific attire, lists of names with specialized credentials, security clearance levels. One photo shows a group of men standing before the camp entrance. Among them, a younger William Blackwood and, surprisingly, the current Sheriff Dave Holloway's father, identified as Chief of Security. "The connections go back generations," Marcus murmurs. "Holloway isn't just covering up current crimes, he's protecting his family legacy." Sarah continues searching through the locker until she gasps, pulling out a manila envelope labeled simply RM Insurance. Inside is a USB drive and a handwritten note. "If found, deliver to Sarah Mercer." The handwriting is unmistakably Robert's. "He knew," she says, voice thick with emotion. "He knew someone might come after him. That's why he left this here." Marcus nods towards a dated computer sitting on a desk in the corner. "Let's see what he found." The computer whirs to life, its ancient hard drive grinding as it boots up. The USB drive contains dozens of files, photographs, documents, audio recordings, all meticulously organized in folders labeled by date and subject. They open a file marked Camp 14 Purpose. Robert's voice fills the room, recorded notes to himself. Camp 14 began as a standard correctional facility, but documents indicate a shift in 1957 when Dr. William Blackwood arrived. Blackwood had previously worked on classified government programs, including rumored psychological experimentation. Under his direction, Camp 14 transitioned from prisoner rehabilitation to what they termed specialized behavioral research. A pause, the sound of paper shuffling. Subject selection criteria focused on inmates with no family connections. Minimal outside correspondence. Easy to make disappear. Later expanded to include collected specimens, a euphemism for civilians who encountered something in the woods they weren't supposed to see. Marcus and Sarah exchange glances as the recording continues. By 1962, official records show the camp was decommissioned, but financial documents tell a different story. The operation went black, funded through shell companies connected to Blackwood Development. The Park Service provided cover, restricted areas, limited access, rangers instructed to redirect visitors away from certain sectors. Robert's voice grows more intense. "The real question is what they were doing there. Fragmentary records suggest human experimentation, psychological conditioning, possibly chemical or biological testing. But to what end? And why has it continued for decades after the official shutdown?" The recording ends abruptly. Sarah opens another file, photographs of the forest showing strange structures identical to the nest Marcus discovered. "He found them too," Marcus says softly. "The markers." Another folder contains satellite imagery of the park, with areas circled in red. The same 7 locations from the Camp 14 map. Each shows cleared areas, subtle changes in vegetation patterns that wouldn't be noticeable without knowing what to look for. "Look at the dates on these images," Sarah says. 2020, 2021, just months before Robert disappeared. Whatever started in the 1950s is still active. A final audio file dated 1 day before Robert's disappearance plays his last recorded notes. "I've confirmed active operations at minimum 3 sites. Regular vehicle movement along unmarked forest roads, usually between 2 and 4 a.m. Security personnel with military-grade equipment, and the disposal sites. God help me, I've found where they take the bodies. Tomorrow I'm going to Site 3 to get photographic evidence. If I'm right, this will expose everything. The experiments, the disappearances, decades of covered-up deaths. The Blackwoods, the sheriff, half the county government, they'll all go down for this." His voice lowers, becomes more personal. Sarah, if you're hearing this, I'm sorry. I should have been more careful. But this is bigger than me, bigger than any of us. The truth has to come out, no matter what happens. The recording ends. Sarah sits motionless, tears streaming silently down her face. Marcus places a hand gently on her shoulder, offering what comfort he can in the face of her brother's final words. He was brave, Marcus says softly, and he was right. Sarah wipes her eyes, grief transforming into determination. Then we finish what he started. We expose them all. As they prepare to leave, copying the most critical files onto their own devices, Marcus notices a folder they hadn't examined, labeled simply A. Reed. His blood runs cold. Amy, his wife. The folder contains newspaper clippings about her accident, police reports, and a handwritten note from Robert. Brake lines cut, not an accident. A. Reed photographed unusual structures in restricted area 2 days before death, connected to Blackwood Land Development Project. Same pattern as other accidents. Witnesses who saw too much. The world seems to tilt beneath Marcus's feet. 5 years of accepted truth, of grieving an accident, shattered in an instant. Amy's death wasn't random misfortune. It was murder. Marcus? Sarah's voice seems to come from far away. Are you all right? He can't speak, can only pass her the file. She reads quickly, understanding dawning in her eyes. Oh God, Marcus, I'm so sorry. The compassion in her voice nearly breaks him. 5 years of contained grief threatens to explode into rage, into violence. His hands shake as he closes the file. They killed her, he says, voice hollow, because she saw something in the forest, just like your brother. Sarah takes his trembling hand in hers. Then they pay for both of them, for everyone they have hurt. Outside, the day has begun to fade, shadows lengthening across the abandoned post office grounds. They lock the storage room, returning the key to its hiding place as Margaret instructed. We need to find the other nests, Marcus says as they walk toward his truck. Robert located 3 of the 7 sites. We have the coordinates for all of them from the Camp 14 documents. And then what? We can't exactly walk into the sheriff's office with this evidence. No, but I know someone who might help us get to the right federal authorities. As they reach the truck, Marcus notices something that stops him cold. A small marking scratched into the driver's side door. 3 vertical lines crossed by 1 horizontal line. The same symbol he'd seen in the Camp 14 documents, marking processed subjects. Someone has found them. Someone wants them to know they're being watched. Get in, he says urgently. We need to move. Now. Night has fallen by the time they reach Elena Vasquez's modest home on the outskirts of a neighboring town. As an anthropologist specializing in cultural symbolism and folklore, she spent years documenting the history and legends of the region, including stories that most academics dismiss as superstition. Elena's living room has been transformed into a working office, bookshelves lining the walls, a large desk covered with papers and artifacts, photographs and maps pinned to a corkboard. At 58, she carries herself with the quiet confidence of someone who has fought for respect in her field, her salt and pepper hair pulled back in a practical braid, her eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. The structures you've found are fascinating, she says, examining Marcus's photographs. They bear remarkable similarities to markers described in local folklore, built by settlers who believed they could ward off evil spirits in the forest. Evil spirits? Sarah asks skeptically. Elena smiles. That's the modern interpretation. The original legends spoke of watchers in the woods, entities that guarded certain places, took people who ventured too close. Early settlers attributed supernatural qualities to them, but the descriptions are consistent with human sentinels. Guards, Marcus says, marking territory. Precisely. The nests themselves follow a pattern documented across multiple cultures, warning signals that establish boundaries. Enter at your own peril. Marcus spreads out the map showing the 7 locations. These sites form a perimeter around the old camp. We think they're still active, places where they dispose of problems. Elena studies the map intently. The positioning is deliberate, 7 points creating a contained space. In numerous traditions, 7 represents completion, Perfection. A fully secured boundary. She moves to her bookshelf, pulling down an old volume. This might interest you. Local history compiled in the 1930s, before the federal government acquired the land for Camp 14. The book contains accounts from early settlers describing areas of the forest where people disappeared, where strange noises were heard at night, places the native population had apparently avoided for generations. The land itself has a dark history, Elena explains. The indigenous people believe certain parts of the forest contain portals to an underworld, places where the boundary between worlds was thin. You think there's something supernatural going on? Sarah asks, doubt evident in her voice. Elena shakes her head. I think powerful men have exploited local fears and superstitions to keep people away from their operations. The human imagination conjures monsters when the truth is too terrible to face, that other humans are responsible for the horrors. She turns to Marcus. Your wife, she was a photographer documenting environmental impact, correct? Marcus nods, surprised by her knowledge. I met her once, at a conservation conference. Brilliant woman, she showed me photographs of unusual vegetation patterns in the national forest, areas where native plants had been replaced by invasive species in perfectly circular formations. Like something had been buried there, Marcus says quietly, changing the soil composition. Exactly. She was planning to investigate further. The revelation lands like a physical blow. Amy had been closer to the truth than he ever realized. Had her death truly been a simple car accident, or had she been silenced before she could expose something buried in those woods? Elena continues, the Blackwood family has controlled this region for generations, first through timber and mining, later through real estate development and political influence. But there's always been rumors about their true source of power. What kind of rumors? Sarah asks. Government contracts, classified research, the kind of work that requires remote locations and deniability. Marcus thinks of the Camp 14 documents, the references to special projects and experimental subjects, a federal facility that officially closed but continued operating in secret for decades. We need to find what they're hiding, he says. And we need proof solid enough that even their political connections can't bury it. Elena regards them both with grave seriousness. You're challenging a system that's operated with impunity for over half a century. These people don't just have money and influence. They have practice at making problems disappear. We don't have a choice, Sarah says firmly. My brother died for this truth. Marcus's wife too, most likely. How many others have been silenced? Elena nods slowly, decision made. I have contacts at the state university, people who can analyze samples, verify documents without asking too many questions, and a former student who works for the FBI field office in the city. If you get concrete evidence, I can help make sure it reaches the right people. As Marcus and Sarah prepare to leave, Elena pulls a small leather pouch from her desk drawer. Take this, it contains a GPS tracker. If anything happens, if you disappear, at least we'll have a starting point to find you. The gravity of her words settles over them. They're not just investigating crimes, they're making themselves targets. Outside, the night presses in, stars obscured by gathering clouds. A storm approaches, literal and figurative. Where do we go now? Sarah asks as they climb into Marcus's truck. To find the remaining nests and to see what they're hiding. The forest at night transforms into another world entirely. Familiar landmarks disappearing into darkness. Sounds carrying strangely through the dense trees. Marcus moves with practiced silence, leading Sarah along game trails and natural pathways that don't appear on any official map. Their destination is the third site marked on the Camp 14 document, a location deep in the eastern section of the park, far from maintained trails or ranger patrols. According to the coordinates, it should be just beyond the ridge ahead, in a small valley sheltered from view. Rain begins to fall, light at first, then increasing steadily. It muffles their footsteps but reduces visibility, the beam of their flashlights reflecting off countless droplets to create a disorienting glow around them. How much further? Sarah whispers, her city background evident in her cautious movements through the unfamiliar terrain. About half a mile. Stay close. They crest the ridge, and Marcus signals for Sarah to extinguish her light. Below, barely visible through the rain and darkness, is their destination. A clearing in the forest where another nest structure stands, this one larger than those he'd found previously. But unlike the others, this site shows clear signs of recent activity. A perimeter of newer trees has been planted to conceal the area from aerial observation. The ground around the nest has been disturbed, the earth darker in patches as if recently turned. And most alarmingly, lights, faint but unmistakable, moving through the trees on the far side of the clearing. Flashlights, at least 3, perhaps more. Someone's there, Sarah breathes, barely audible even at Marcus's side. Stay down, he whispers, pulling her lower behind the ridgeline. We need to circle around, get a better view without being exposed. They make their way carefully along the ridge, using the trees for cover until they reach a position where they can observe the clearing while remaining hidden in the foliage. The lights have converged near the nest. With his binoculars, Marcus can make out 3 figures in dark clothing, their faces obscured by the rain and distance. They appear to be taking turns with shovels while the others keep watch. They're burying something, Sarah whispers, or digging something up. Marcus focuses the binoculars, trying to make out details through the intensifying rain. The figures work with practiced efficiency, their movements suggesting this is a routine they've performed before. Suddenly, headlights appear in the distance, a vehicle approaching along what must be a concealed access road. The 3 figures straighten, turning toward the light. The vehicle stops at the edge of the clearing. Even through the rain, Marcus can make out the distinctive shape of a sheriff's department SUV. A figure emerges, tall, heavy-set, unmistakably Sheriff Holloway even at this distance. The 3 workers approach him. Words are exchanged, though Marcus can't hear them over the rain. Holloway gestures toward whatever they've been digging, then points to the vehicle. 2 of the figures return to the dig site and lift something. A body bag, Marcus realizes with horror. They carry it to the SUV and load it into the back. They're moving evidence, Sarah whispers, removing whatever was buried there. Marcus's mind races. This is happening now in real time, not historical records or second-hand accounts, but active criminal behavior by the county sheriff himself. If they could document this, capture images clear enough to identify Holloway, he reaches for his camera, but at that moment, disaster strikes. Sarah, shifting position to see better, dislodges a small rock that tumbles down the ridge, bouncing and gathering more debris as it falls. The noise, amplified in the tense silence, carries clearly to the clearing below. Flashlight beams immediately swing in their direction. Run, Marcus hisses, grabbing Sarah's arm and pulling her back from the ridge. They flee through the forest, no longer concerned with stealth, focused only on putting distance between themselves and their pursuers. Behind them, shouts echo through the trees, followed by the sound of the SUV's engine roaring to life. Rain lashes at their faces as they run, branches whipping against them, roots and rocks threatening to trip them in the darkness. Marcus leads them through the densest parts of the forest, where no vehicle can follow, but he knows the pursuers will be on foot as well, likely familiar with these woods. After 10 minutes of hard running, they pause in a small hollow formed by the massive roots of an ancient oak. Rain cascades around them, creating a curtain of water that offers some concealment. Did we lose them? Sarah gasps, struggling to catch her breath. Marcus listens intently, filtering out the sound of the rain and their own breathing. In the distance, flashlights moving through the trees, still searching, still coming. We need to split up, he says grimly. I'll lead them away. You circle back to the truck. No, Sarah protests. We stay together. Sarah, listen to me. They know who I am already, but they might not have seen you clearly. If we both get caught, everything we've learned dies with us. The logic is undeniable, but fear shines in her eyes, not just for herself, but for him. Take this, he says, pressing a small key into her palm. Storage unit in Carlton, next town over, number 237. Everything we've gathered is backed up there. If I don't make it back, get it to Elena. She clutches the key, then impulsively reaches out to touch his face. Be careful, Marcus. Go west until you hit the service road. The truck is a quarter-mile north from there. Wait 30 minutes. If I don't need to come back, leave without me. Sarah nods, steeling herself. then disappears into the rain-soaked darkness, heading west. Marcus waits until she's gone, then moves in the opposite direction, deliberately making enough noise to attract attention. When he hears shouts behind him, he knows his plan has worked. They're following him, not her. He leads them on a winding chase through the forest, using every trick he learned in Afghanistan, doubling back, crossing streams to break his trail, creating false leads. But these pursuers are skilled, persistent, and they know these woods as well as he does. A bullet splinters bark near his head. They're shooting now, no longer concerned with capturing him alive. Marcus ducks and weaves, using the trees for cover, pushing deeper into the wilderness. His foot catches on a hidden root, sending him tumbling down a steep embankment. Pain lances through his ankle as he lands hard at the bottom. Not broken, but sprained. He can still walk, but running is now agonizing. The voices are closer, closing in from multiple directions. Marcus drags himself into the hollow of a fallen log, pulling forest debris over himself for concealment. He controls his breathing, ignoring the pain, becoming as still as the forest around him. Flashlight beams sweep across the area. Boots crunch on wet leaves mere feet from his hiding place. Marcus doesn't move, doesn't breathe. He can't have gone far, a gruff voice says. Not with that fall we heard. Spread out, another voice commands. 5-meter intervals. He's here somewhere. The search continues for what feels like hours, the rain eventually driving away all but the most determined pursuers. Finally, even those voices fade, though Marcus suspects they haven't given up. Merely retreated to regroup, perhaps to bring in more searchers when daylight comes. When he's certain they're gone, he crawls from his hiding place, wincing as weight falls on his injured ankle. The rain has stopped, leaving the forest dripping and eerily quiet. He needs to move, to get back to the truck, to find Sarah, but first he needs to know exactly what they were burying or unburying at that site. His path back to the clearing is slow, painful. Each step sends shards of agony through his ankle, but military discipline keeps him moving forward. The sun will rise in a few hours. He needs to be gone before then. The clearing appears deserted when he finally reaches it. The sheriff's vehicle is gone, as are the workers he'd seen earlier. Marcus approaches cautiously, alert for any sign of a trap or lingering guards. The nest looms in the pre-dawn gloom, its intricate structure more visible now than it had been in darkness. Unlike the previous nests, this one shows signs of regular maintenance. Newer branches woven into the older structure, the ground around it cleared of competing vegetation. The dig site is immediately apparent, a rectangular depression where earth has been recently disturbed. Marcus approaches, using a fallen branch to carefully probe the soil. It's loose, easily displaced. Whatever was buried here hasn't been in the ground long. He begins to dig with his hands, ignoring the pain in his ankle, driven by the need to know what they were trying to hide. A foot down, his fingers brush against fabric, a synthetic material, waterproof. More digging reveals a corner of what appears to be a tarp, carefully wrapped around something substantial. Marcus pulls, the wet earth reluctantly releasing its hold on the buried package. What emerges sends ice through his veins. A second body bag, similar to the one they'd removed, apparently left behind in their hurried departure. With trembling hands, Marcus unzips the heavy-duty plastic. The face that greets him is unfamiliar. A man, perhaps 40, with features frozen in an expression of terror. No obvious cause of death, no wounds visible on the exposed skin. But there's something strange about the body. The skin has an unnatural gray pallor, and dark veins are visible beneath the surface, creating patterns like a road map across the face and neck. Whatever killed this man wasn't natural. Marcus zips the bag closed, his mind racing. This is evidence, proof of murder, of a cover-up involving the county sheriff. But he can't exactly carry a body through miles of forest with a damaged ankle, and calling the authorities is pointless when they're the very people responsible. A sound in the distance, voices approaching along the concealed road. They're coming back, perhaps having realized in their haste that they left something behind. Marcus quickly refills the hole, smoothing the earth as best he can to hide his excavation. He needs to leave now before he's discovered. The return journey is excruciating, his ankle worsening with each step. Dawn breaks over the forest as he finally reaches the service road where his truck should be parked. It's gone. Panic rises before he spots a folded piece of paper tucked beneath a rock at the roadside. Sarah's handwriting, "Forced to move, will return 6 a.m. S." Marcus checks his watch, 5:47. She should be back soon, if nothing has gone wrong. He conceals himself in the underbrush beside the road, watching both directions while fighting to stay conscious through waves of pain. At 6:05, headlights appear in the distance. Marcus tenses, ready to retreat deeper into the forest if necessary. But as the vehicle approaches, he recognizes his own truck, with Sarah behind the wheel. She helps him into the passenger seat, face tightening with concern when she sees his condition. Sheriff's deputies were patrolling the roads, she explains as she drives. I had to move before they spotted the truck. What happened to you? Marcus grimaces as the vehicle hits a pothole, sending fresh pain through his ankle. Fell during the chase, found something after you left. They were removing a body from that site, but they missed one. Someone they killed, Sarah, with some kind of chemical or biological agent from the look of it. We need to get you to a hospital. No hospitals. They'll be watching emergency rooms, clinics. The moment my name enters the system, they'll find us. Sarah's knuckles whiten on the steering wheel. Then where at Fayor? Marcus thinks of Elena's contacts at the university, of the storage unit where they've secured copies of their evidence, of Brandon, who might already be in danger for helping them. We need to go to ground, he decides. Somewhere they won't think to look for us. The abandoned ranger cabin sits high on a remote ridge, accessible only by a treacherous fire road that hasn't been maintained in years. Used decades ago as a fire lookout, it's been largely forgotten since newer monitoring systems made such outposts obsolete. Brandon had mentioned it once, not on any current maps, no longer part of official park inventory. The perfect place to disappear. The cabin is Spartan but solid, a single room with basic amenities that haven't been used in years. A wood stove, a narrow cot, a desk beneath the windows that once served as the lookout post. Solar panels on the roof, installed during a modernization effort in the 1990s, still provide minimal power for lights in the ancient radio system. Sarah helps Marcus inside, supporting his weight as he limps up the worn wooden steps. His ankle has swollen to twice its normal size, the skin discolored and tight. Sit, she commands, guiding him to the cot. Let me look at that. Her touch is gentle but clinical as she examines the injury. Severe sprain, possibly torn ligaments. You need rest, ice, compression, elevation, none of which we really have here. There should be a first aid kit somewhere, Marcus says through gritted teeth, standard equipment for these outposts. Sarah searches the cabin, eventually finding a dusty metal box mounted on the wall. Inside are basic medical supplies. Bandages, antiseptic, pain relievers expired years ago but likely still partially effective. She works efficiently, cleaning and wrapping his ankle with practiced movements. You seem to know what you're doing, Marcus observes. A small smile touches her lips. 8 years as a volunteer EMT during college and grad school comes in handy when you're the academic leading student research expeditions into remote areas. With his ankle bandaged and elevated on a folded blanket, Marcus finally allows himself to truly rest. The adrenaline that has carried him through the night ebbs away, leaving bone-deep exhaustion in its wake. We should be safe here for a while, he says, fighting to keep his eyes open. No one knows about this place except Brandon, and I didn't tell him we were coming here. Sarah sits beside him on the cot. Marcus, what we saw tonight, that was a body disposal site, active, current. Not some historical atrocity, but ongoing crimes being committed with the sheriff's direct involvement. And whatever killed that man wasn't conventional. Those markings on his skin, I've never seen anything like it. Some kind of poisoning? Radiation exposure? Marcus shakes his head. I don't know, but it connects to whatever they were doing at Camp 14, whatever experiments Blackwood was running. They've never stopped. They just moved deeper underground. Sarah's expression hardens with resolve. Then we expose them. All of them, whatever it takes. As darkness falls over the remote cabin, Marcus finally surrenders to exhaustion. Falling into a troubled sleep filled with fragments of memory and nightmare, Amy's smile, the crashed car, bodies in the earth, nests woven from branches that seem to whisper in the wind. He wakes with a start, momentarily disoriented. The cabin is dark except for the faint glow of a small lantern on the desk, where Sarah sits reviewing files from Robert's USB drive. The old radio unit crackles with static beside her. "How long was I out?" Marcus asks, his mouth dry. "About 6 hours. It's just after midnight." He sits up carefully, testing his ankle. Still painful, but the rest has helped. "Any luck with the radio?" Sarah shakes her head. "I've been trying different frequencies, hoping to pick up news. Nothing but static and the occasional trucker conversation." She turns back to the laptop. "I've been going through Robert's files more thoroughly. Marcus, he compiled incredible evidence. Financial records showing money laundering through Blackwood Development, shell companies funneling government funds to classified research, documentation of at least 17 disappearances connected to the 7 sites. Enough to build a case? More than enough, if we can get it to the right authorities. The problem is figuring out who we can trust." The radio suddenly crackles to life, a voice breaking through the static. "Countywide alert for 2 suspects, considered armed and dangerous. Marcus Reed, 51, Forest Service employee, and Sarah Mercer, 38, university professor, believed to be traveling in a green Forest Service truck. License plate." They listen in growing alarm as the bulletin continues, describing them as wanted for questioning in connection with multiple homicides. "They're framing us," Sarah says, her voice tight with disbelief. "Making us into the criminals." "Standard tactic," Marcus replies grimly. "Discredit the whistleblowers. Make any evidence we bring forward look like a desperate attempt to shift blame." The radio continues. "Reed has military training and should be considered extremely dangerous. Any sighting should be reported immediately to the sheriff's department. Do not approach." Sarah switches off the radio, the silence that follows somehow more threatening than the broadcast itself. "They'll have roadblocks on all the main highways," Marcus says, thinking through the implications. "My truck is too recognizable now, and they'll be monitoring Elena, Brandon, anyone connected to, So we're trapped here? No, but our window for action just got smaller. We need to secure the evidence, get it somewhere public where it can't be buried." Sarah returns to the laptop. Robert was planning to release everything to multiple news outlets simultaneously. He had contacts at 3 different papers, plus a federal prosecutor he trusted. "Do you have those contacts?" "Some of them, but reaching out electronically is too risky now. They'll be monitoring communications." Marcus considers their options. The allegations against them change everything. Even if they reached Elena's FBI contact, they might be arrested before they could present their evidence. And if they were taken into custody in this county, they likely wouldn't survive to see a courtroom. "We need leverage," he decides. "Something so compelling they can't risk silencing us." "Like what?" "Like the body I found. Or better yet, one of the active sites caught in the act of whatever they're doing out there." Sarah looks skeptical. "You want to go back, after barely escaping last night?" "Not the same site, a different one." Marcus points to the map. "Robert identified 3 of the 7. We know they're watching those now, but there are 4 others they don't know we're aware of." "And you think we'll find something incriminating at one of them?" "These sites are part of whatever operation they're running. If we can document it, get irrefutable evidence." Sarah studies him, concern evident in her eyes. "Your ankle won't hold up to another trek through the wilderness." "It has to," Marcus says simply. "We're running out of options." Dawn breaks over the forest, pale light filtering through the cabin windows. Marcus tests his weight on his injured ankle, painful but manageable with the makeshift walking stick Sarah has fashioned from a fallen branch. They've spent the night planning, analyzing Robert's data alongside the Camp 14 documents. Of the remaining 4 sites, one stands out. Site 5, located in the southwestern quadrant of the park. Robert's notes indicated unusual infrastructure development nearby. Power lines that don't appear on official maps, a service road disguised as a fire break. If they're running some kind of operation, they need electricity, access, Marcus reasons. This site has both. The plan is dangerous, desperate. Drive as close as possible using back roads, then approach on foot through the forest. document whatever they find, then make their way to Carlton, where Elena's university contact is waiting to receive their evidence and ensure it reaches federal authorities beyond Blackwood's influence. They leave the cabin at first light, taking only what they absolutely need: the laptop, camera, GPS unit, and enough supplies to sustain them for 24 hours. The Forest Service truck remains hidden under camouflage netting near the cabin. Instead, they'll use the ATV stored in the cabin's small shed, a vehicle less likely to be recognized or spotted from a distance. The journey through the forest is tense, every distant sound potentially a search party, every helicopter passing overhead possibly looking for them. They keep to the densest parts of the forest, avoiding roads and trails where they might be spotted. By mid-morning, they've reached the vicinity of Site 5. Marcus kills the ATV's engine, concealing it beneath fallen branches and foliage. From here, they continue on foot, moving with painstaking caution. The site lies in a natural depression, surrounded by dense forest on all sides. Invisible from the air, accessible only if you know exactly where to look. As they approach the ridge overlooking the depression, Marcus signals for Sarah to stop, to remain low and silent. Below them stands another nest structure, larger and more elaborate than any Marcus has seen before. But unlike the others, this one is clearly part of a larger installation. A small prefabricated building stands nearby, camouflaged with netting and artificial foliage to blend with the surroundings. A generator hums quietly, powering whatever equipment lies inside. Most alarmingly, the area is guarded. Two men in unmarked black uniforms patrol the perimeter, carrying what appear to be military-grade weapons. "This isn't just a disposal site," Marcus whispers. "This is an active facility." Sarah's expression is a mixture of vindication and horror. Robert was right about all of it. They watch for nearly an hour, documenting the site with telephoto lens photographs. A vehicle arrives, not a sheriff's department vehicle this time, but an unmarked van with tinted windows. Three people emerge, two more guards, and a figure in a white lab coat carrying a metal case. The scientist, if that's what they are, enters the prefabricated building while the guards remain outside. 20 minutes later, they emerge, now wearing what appears to be protective gear. Hazmat suits without the full helmets, just respirator masks. "What are they doing in there?" Sarah whispers. "I don't know, but whatever it is, they're taking precautions against exposure." The guards and scientist approach the nest structure. One guard remains on lookout, while the other helps the scientist remove something from the nest. A small device, perhaps the size of a shoebox, metallic and blinking with small lights. Some kind of monitoring equipment, Marcus guesses. They're using the nest to house sensors or collection devices. The scientist carefully places the device in the metal case, sealing it with practiced efficiency. "We need to see what's in that building," Sarah says. Marcus hesitates. The risk is enormous. They're outnumbered, outgunned, and his mobility compromised by his injury. But she's right. Whatever evidence lies inside that structure could be the key to understanding the entire operation. We wait, he decides. Watch their patterns, look for an opening. Another hour passes. The van departs with the scientist and the collected device, leaving just the two original guards. They maintain a predictable patrol pattern, one circling the perimeter while the other remains near the building entrance, alternating positions every 30 minutes. "There's our window," Marcus says as they observe the change in positions. When they switch, there's about 15 seconds where both are on the far side of the building. "That's not much time. It's all we're going to get." They make their way carefully down the ridge, using the dense undergrowth for cover. Marcus's ankle throbs with each step, but adrenaline dulls the pain. They position themselves behind a fallen tree approximately 50 yards from the building, waiting for the next rotation. When it comes, they move. Sarah slightly ahead, Marcus following as quickly as his injury allows. They reach the building's blind side just as the guards disappear around the far corner. The door is locked, but the window beside it is not. An oversight born of confidence that no one would find this place, or perhaps simple complacency after years without discovery. Sarah slides the window open and climbs through, Marcus following with more difficulty, his injured ankle protesting the awkward movement. They find themselves in a small antechamber, a decontamination area with shelves holding protective gear similar to what they saw the scientists wearing. Beyond lies the main room of the facility, and what they see there stops them cold. The space resembles a cross between a medical laboratory and a military command center. Sophisticated equipment lines the walls, monitoring systems, medical devices, communication arrays. In the center stands an examination table with restraints, surrounded by equipment whose purpose Marcus can only guess at. But most disturbing are the specimens, glass containers holding what appear to be biological samples. Tissue, organs, fluids, each meticulously labeled with codes and dates. Some display the same strange discoloration Marcus observed on the body he found. Dark veining, unnatural pallor. My God, Sarah breathes. What is this place? Marcus moves to a computer terminal, still active, its screen displaying data he doesn't understand. Chemical formulas, biological markers, test results. He inserts a small USB drive, quickly copying whatever files he can access. Sarah photographs everything. The equipment, the specimens, the documents scattered across a desk in the corner. Her hands shake slightly, but her movements remain efficient, professional. Marcus, she calls softly, holding up a folder. Look at this. The document inside bears a government classification marking and the title Project Erebus, Phase 4 Trials. Below that in smaller text, neurotoxin deployment parameters. They're developing weapons, Marcus realizes, chemical or biological agents. Using human subjects, Sarah adds, her voice hollow as she indicates another page listing test subjects with only ID numbers, no names. The sound of boots on gravel outside freezes them in place. The guards are returning. Time's up, Marcus whispers. We have what we need. They exit through the window, closing it behind them, just as the guards round the corner of the building. Staying low, they retreat into the forest, moving as quickly and quietly as possible, given Marcus's limitation. They're halfway back to the ridge when a shout erupts behind them. They've been spotted. Run, Marcus urges, pushing Sarah ahead of him. Don't wait for me. Gunfire erupts, bullets splintering trees around them. Marcus stumbles, his ankle giving way on the uneven ground. Sarah turns back for him, helping him to his feet despite his protests. Together they push forward, the sounds of pursuit growing closer. The guards are faster, uninjured, familiar with the terrain. The outcome seems inevitable. Then, unexpectedly, salvation appears. Brandon emerging from the trees ahead, gesturing urgently toward a concealed trail. This way, he calls. Hurry! They follow him down a nearly invisible path that winds between massive boulders and through dense underbrush. The sounds of pursuit fade, their trackers losing the trail in the complex terrain. Brandon leads them to a small clearing where an ATV waits, engine running. Get on, he instructs. Both of you. How did you find us? Marcus asks as they climb onto the vehicle. Elena, Brandon explains, gunning the engine. She called me after you missed your check-in. Said you might be near one of the sites from the old map. I've been searching since dawn. They speed through the forest, Brandon navigating with confidence born of years patrolling these woods. Behind them faintly comes the sound of vehicles, the pursuit regrouping, mobilizing. They're coming, Sarah warns, looking back. Let them, Brandon says grimly. I know these woods better than they do. He takes them on a winding route, through streams to mask their trail, along ridgelines too narrow for larger vehicles. Eventually, they reach a paved road where a pickup truck waits, hidden behind a screen of trees. Get in, Brandon urges. There's a burner phone in the glove compartment. Elena's contact is expecting your call. You're not coming with us? Sarah asks. Brandon shakes his head. I'll lead them away. Buy you time. Take the truck to Carleton, the university campus. Your contact will meet you at the science building south entrance. Brandon, these people don't hesitate to eliminate problems, Marcus warns. If they catch you helping us... I know the risks, the younger man says firmly. My grandfather died carrying the burden of whatever he saw in these woods. I won't let these secrets destroy another generation. The sound of approaching vehicles grows louder. Time is running out. Go, Brandon insists. I'll be fine. Marcus clasps his hand. Be careful, and thank you. As they drive away in the pickup, Marcus watches in the rearview mirror as Brandon mounts the ATV and heads in the opposite direction, deliberately leaving visible tracks, drawing their pursuers away from their escape route. Will he be okay? Sarah asks, concern etched on her face. I don't know, Marcus answers honestly, but he's given us a chance to finish this. The highway stretches before them, empty in the early afternoon light. Carlton is 40 miles away. 40 miles to deliver evidence that could expose decades of crimes, of human experimentation, of corruption reaching to the highest levels of local government. Sarah checks the USB drive containing the files Marcus copied, reviewing them on her laptop as they drive. This is worse than we imagined, she says, voice tight with horror. They've been developing neurotoxins, testing them on human subjects. People who wouldn't be missed, homeless individuals, hikers in remote areas, anyone they could take without raising alarms. And the bodies go to the 7 sites, Marcus adds, pieces falling into place. The nests mark mass graves, but there are also monitoring stations, collecting data on how the toxins affect the surrounding environment over time. The documents mention government contracts, defense applications. This isn't just local corruption. There are federal connections, military interests. The implications are staggering. Not just murder and corruption, but state-sanctioned experimentation, weapons development using unwilling human subjects. The kind of atrocity that destroys careers, collapses institutions, rewrites history. No wonder they're willing to kill to keep it hidden. As they approach the outskirts of Carlton, Marcus's phone buzzes with an incoming text. The number is unfamiliar, but the message chills his blood. Trap at University, Elena taken. Do not approach campus. Who's it from? Sarah asks, seeing his expression. I don't know. Could be Brandon or one of Elena's contacts. Or it could be them, trying to divert us. Sarah studies the message. What do we do? Marcus weighs their options. The university was their safe haven, their path to federal authorities beyond Blackwood's reach. If that road is compromised, we need a new plan, he decides, a way to release everything publicly, all at once, where they can't contain it. Sarah's eyes light with sudden inspiration. Robert had a plan for that too. A dead man's switch. If he didn't check in regularly, everything would automatically upload to multiple news outlets, government oversight committees, watchdog organizations. Did he activate it? I don't know, but the instructions would be in his files. They pull into a truck stop on the outskirts of Carlton, anonymous, busy with travelers who pay them no attention. While Marcus keeps watch, Sarah searches through Robert's digital archive. Here it is, she says finally. Instructions for activating the protocol. We need to access a specific server, enter authentication codes. Then the system does the rest, distributes everything to dozens of recipients simultaneously. Can we do it from here? Sarah shakes her head. We need a secure connection, one they can't trace or block. And we need to upload the new evidence we've gathered. Marcus thinks of their options. Police stations, libraries, public offices, all too risky now. Then it hits him. The television station, he says, local news office in Carlton. They'll have secure internet, broadcasting capabilities. They'll also have security, restricted access. Yes, but they have something else too. Journalists who live for exactly this kind of story. We don't need to sneak in, we just need one reporter hungry enough to listen. The Carlton Valley News Building stands in the center of town, a modest 3-story structure with satellite dishes on the roof and the station's logo prominently displayed. As regional news operations go, it's small, covering 5 counties with a staff of perhaps 20 journalists. Marcus and Sarah watch from across the street, considering their approach. Police cars patrol regularly. The alert for their arrest has clearly reached Carlton as well. We can't just walk in the front door, Sarah observes. We'd be recognized immediately. Marcus studies the building, noting the employee entrance at the side, the smoking area where a young man in a station ID badge takes a break, the delivery entrance where a van unloads equipment. We need a distraction, he decides, and a way in that bypasses the main security desk. They formulate a plan, simple but effective. Sarah will create a diversion near the front entrance while Marcus accesses the building through the loading dock, using the confusion to slip past security. When a delivery truck arrives at the loading dock, their opportunity comes. Sarah approaches the front of the building, visibly distraught, claiming a major accident has occurred nearby. As predicted, Reporters and security personnel respond to the potential breaking news, moving toward the front entrance. Marcus slips in through the loading dock, using the station ID badge he lifted from the smoking employee's unattended jacket. Inside, he navigates service corridors until he reaches the newsroom floor. The environment is chaotic. Journalists moving between desks, phones ringing, monitors displaying various news feeds. Marcus scans the room looking for someone who might help them. His gaze settles on a woman in her 40s working intently at a corner desk, surrounded by investigative journalism awards. He approaches cautiously. "Diane Winters?" She looks up, suspicious. "Yes, who are you?" "Someone with a story you're going to want to hear. About Blackwood Development, Sheriff Holloway, and why they've framed me and Sarah Mercer for murder." Recognition flashes in her eyes. "Marcus Reed, you're all over the police alerts." "Yes, and if you give me 5 minutes, I'll show you why." To her credit, Diane doesn't call security immediately. Professional curiosity wins out. 5 minutes, she agrees, in the interview room. No recording until I say so. The small room offers privacy, soundproofed walls, a table with chairs, no windows. Marcus places the USB drive on the table. This contains evidence of crimes spanning 5 decades. Human experimentation, illegal weapons development, dozens of murders covered up by county officials, all connected to the Blackwood family and their government contracts. Diane's skepticism is evident. "That's quite a claim, Mr. Reed. It's all documented, files, photographs, audio recordings collected by Robert Mercer before his disappearance 2 years ago, along with new evidence we've gathered over the past 48 hours. At the mention of Robert's name, Diane's expression changes. "I knew Robert. He was a good journalist. When he disappeared, I never believed the official story. His sister Sarah is with me. She has the authentication codes for Robert's dead man switch, a system that will release everything to multiple outlets simultaneously. We need your help to activate it." Diane studies him carefully. "Why come to me? Why not go to the authorities?" "Because the local authorities are involved, and we've been branded as killers to discredit anything we might say. We need this evidence made public before they can bury it. Or us." A long moment passes as Diane weighs her options, professional ethics against potential risk. Finally, she nods. "Show me what you have. If it's legitimate, I'll help you." Marcus opens a folder containing photographs, the nest structures, the laboratory they discovered, the specimens, the body with its strange discoloration. He plays a fragment of Robert's final recording, describing the disposal sites and his plans to expose everything. Diane's skepticism transforms into growing alarm as she reviews the material. My God, if this is authentic." "It is, and there's much more. But we need to act quickly. They've already taken our ally, Elena Vasquez. They'll be looking for us here soon." Decision made, Diane stands. "Wait here. I'm going to get Sarah from the front entrance and bring her back here. Then we'll use the station's secure server to activate the protocol." She returns minutes later with Sarah, who looks relieved to see Marcus safe. They work quickly, connecting to Robert's server using the authentication codes, uploading the new evidence alongside his original files. "Once we activate this, there's no going back," Sarah warns. "It goes to everyone on Robert's distribution list. National newspapers, television networks, oversight committees, independent prosecutors." "Do it," Marcus says firmly. Sarah enters the final command. On the screen, a progress bar appears. Files uploading, distribution protocols engaging. Then confirmation, distribution complete. "How long until someone acts on it?" Diane asks. "Minutes, maybe hours," Sarah answers. "But it's done. They can't stop it now, can't contain it. Whatever happens to us, the truth is out there." Diane's phone buzzes with incoming messages, colleagues receiving the files, editors demanding information. The station's news director appears in the doorway, face flushed with excitement. "Winters, what the hell is this? We're getting massive document dumps about Blackwood, about the sheriff's department. CNN is calling for confirmation." "It's real," Diane says, "all of it. And we've got the sources right here." The newsroom erupts into controlled chaos as journalists begin processing the information. producers scrambling to prepare special broadcasts, legal teams reviewing the material for verification. In the midst of the storm, Marcus and Sarah share a moment of quiet triumph. Whatever comes next, arrest, trials, testimony, the truth can no longer be buried. Robert's work, Amy's death, the countless victims of Camp 14 and its legacy, all will finally receive justice. Outside the television station, sirens wail as vehicles approach. Not just local police, but state troopers, federal agents. The reckoning has begun. "Are you ready for this?" Sarah asks, standing shoulder to shoulder with Marcus as they prepare to face whatever comes. He thinks of Amy, of the life they had, of the truth he never suspected until it was thrust upon him, of the forest he loved, now revealed as a burial ground for unspeakable crimes, of the oath he took to protect, to serve, to uphold justice. "Yes," he answers simply. "Whatever happens now, we've done what needed to be done." The doors burst open as armed officers enter the newsroom, weapons drawn, shouting commands. But behind them come others, men and women in FBI jackets, federal prosecutors with warrants not for Marcus and Sarah, but for Sheriff Holloway, for Richard Turner, for members of the Blackwood family. The evidence has spoken. The truth, buried for decades in the silent forest, has finally found its voice. The Carlton Valley News Building buzzes with controlled chaos as federal agents establish a secure perimeter around the premises. Outside, red and blue lights flash across the faces of gathering onlookers, curious citizens drawn by the sudden convergence of law enforcement vehicles. Inside, the newsroom has transformed into an impromptu command center, with FBI agents and federal prosecutors working alongside journalists to process the mountain of evidence that continues to flow from Robert Mercer's digital dead man switch. Marcus Reed sits in a conference room, his injured ankle finally properly bandaged by a federal medic. Across the table, Special Agent Catherine Devlin of the FBI reviews his statement, her expression grave but professional. At 55, Devlin carries herself with the seasoned confidence of someone who has seen humanity at its worst, yet maintained her commitment to justice. Her silver-streaked dark hair is pulled back tightly, her suit impeccable despite having been summoned on short notice. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly, Mr. Reed. You're alleging that Blackwood Development, in conjunction with local officials, including Sheriff Holloway, has been operating a classified research facility on federal land for decades, conducting unauthorized human experimentation and disposing of bodies at 7 designated sites throughout the park." Marcus nods, fatigue etched in the lines of his face. The adrenaline that has sustained him through days of danger is finally ebbing, leaving bone-deep exhaustion in its wake. "The evidence is all there. Robert Mercer documented most of it before he was killed. Sarah and I found the rest." Devlin consults her notes. "And you believe your wife's death 5 years ago wasn't an accident, but rather a deliberate elimination because she photographed one of these sites." The words land like physical blows. 5 years of accepted truth, of grieving an accident, replaced by the cold certainty of murder. Marcus's hands tighten around the coffee cup before him, the only outward sign of the storm of emotions beneath his composed exterior. Yes, she was documenting environmental impacts for a conservation magazine. She must have stumbled onto something they couldn't allow to be made public. In an adjacent room, Sarah Mercer provides her own statement to a different agent, filling in the pieces of her brother's investigation, explaining how they discovered the connection between Camp 14's historical operations and current criminal activities. Through the glass partition, Marcus can see her gesturing toward the laptop, her academic precision evident even in this extraordinary circumstance. The station's news director bursts into the conference room, followed closely by Diane Winters, the journalist who had agreed to help them. "Agent Devlin, you need to see this. It's breaking across all networks now." The television mounted on the wall flickers to life, showing aerial footage of Black Pine National Park. A convoy of law enforcement vehicles winds along the forest roads, lights flashing. The caption reads, "Federal raid underway following whistleblower revelations." The scene shifts to a reporter standing outside an imposing Georgian-style mansion, its manicured grounds now crawling with FBI agents. Federal agents have executed search warrants at the Blackwood family estate following explosive revelations of decades-long criminal activity allegedly involving human experimentation, unauthorized weapons development, and multiple homicides. Victor Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Development, was taken into custody just moments ago. The footage shows an elderly man being escorted to a waiting vehicle, his aristocratic features frozen in disbelief as his world collapses around him. In related developments, Sheriff Dave Holloway and Park Director Richard Turner have also been detained for questioning. Sources indicate that federal prosecutors are preparing charges ranging from conspiracy and corruption to murder in violations of international law regarding weapons development. Agent Devlin mutes the television, turning back to Marcus. This is moving faster than any case I've seen in 23 years with the Bureau. The evidence is extraordinarily comprehensive. Mr. Mercer was thorough. He knew the risks, Marcus says quietly. He built a case that could stand without him, just in case. A wise precaution. Devlin closes her notebook. We'll need you and Ms. Mercer to remain available for further questioning, but you're not in custody. The warrants for your arrest have been rescinded, given the circumstances. The conference room door opens again, and a young agent steps in, his expression urgent. Agent Devlin, we've located Elena Vasquez. She's being transported to Carleton Medical Center, and we've got a situation at Site 5. Our tactical team is reporting armed resistance. Marcus straightens, alarm cutting through his exhaustion. Brandon, he led them away from us, towards Site 5. The young ranger who helped you escape? Devlin asks. Yes, he could be in danger. Devlin considers this, then makes a decision. Mr. Reed, you know the terrain better than my people. Would you be willing to accompany our 2nd Tactical Unit as an advisor? Strictly advisory capacity only. You'll remain in the command vehicle. The choice is no choice at all. I'll go, but Sarah should check on Elena. Within 30 minutes, Marcus finds himself in an armored FBI command vehicle, heading towards Site 5 along forest roads he knows by heart. His ankle throbs despite the painkillers, but the discomfort fades beneath the weight of purpose. Around him, tactical team members check weapons and communication equipment, their movements precise and economical. The tactical commander, a former Marine named Ramirez, studies the satellite imagery Marcus has annotated with ranger notations, hidden approaches, terrain features, blind spots in the site's security. These people have military-grade weapons and training, Marcus warns, and they're defending secrets they've kept for decades. They won't surrender easily. Ramirez nods grimly. We've encountered that already. First team took fire as soon as they approached the perimeter. 2 agents wounded, thankfully not critically. Radio chatter fills the vehicle as they approach the staging area, a clearing half a mile from Site 5, close enough for operations but beyond the sight lines of the facility's defenders. Any sign of the ranger? Brandon Davis? Marcus asks. Negative, no confirmed sightings. But we did find an abandoned ATV about a quarter mile from the site perimeter. Could be his. The command vehicle parks at the edge of the staging area, where dozens of federal agents prepare for a coordinated approach. Monitors display thermal imaging of the target site, at least 6 heat signatures moving within and around the prefabricated building, taking defensive positions. Marcus studies the images, recognizing the layout from his earlier reconnaissance with Sarah. The nest structure stands to the north of the main building, partially concealed by the natural depression in the terrain. Something about the thermal imaging around the mess catches his attention. An anomaly in the heat signature, a pattern that doesn't match natural temperature variation. Can you enhance this area? He asked, pointing to the nest. The technician adjusts the settings, bringing the anomaly into sharper focus. The nest itself shows unusual thermal properties, warmer than the surrounding forest, with distinct hotspots at regular intervals around its perimeter. That's not natural, Marcus says, the realization dawning. Those are power sources. The nest itself is part of their equipment, some kind of monitoring or collection system. Ramirez studies the image. Could be rigged, booby-trapped. Or worse, the files we found mention neurotoxin deployment systems. If they feel cornered, the implication hangs in the air. These people have developed weapons specifically designed to kill without leaving conventional evidence. If they decide to use them rather than face justice, Ramirez immediately radios the tactical teams, ordering them to maintain their perimeter but not advance further until chemical weapons specialists arrive. The urgency in his voice reflects the elevated threat. No longer just armed suspects, but potential WMDs. Hours pass in tense preparation. Specialized units arrive with detection equipment and protective gear. The perimeter tightens methodically, cutting off any potential escape routes from the facility. As dusk approaches, the tactical advantage shifts to the federal forces with their night vision capabilities and superior numbers. Marcus remains in the command vehicle, providing terrain guidance and insight into the facility's potential defenses based on what he and Sarah discovered. His thoughts drift frequently to Brandon, the young ranger whose courage made their escape possible, whose fate remains unknown. The radio crackles with a new development. Command, we have movement at the north perimeter. Single individual approaching with hands raised. The thermal imaging shows a solitary figure emerging from the tree line, well away from the facility's main entrance. The heat signature is consistent with a person moving slowly, deliberately non-threatening. Can we get visual confirmation, Ramirez demands? A camera feed appears on one of the monitors showing the figure now illuminated by tactical lights. A young man in a torn ranger uniform, his face bruised, but his stance determined. Brandon, Marcus breathes, relief washing through him. Within minutes, Brandon is brought to the command vehicle, his condition suggesting rough handling, but no critical injuries. His eyes widen at the sight of Marcus. You made it. The evidence got out? Marcus nods, gripping the younger man's shoulder. It's done. Federal prosecutors are already preparing charges. Blackwood, Holloway, Turner, they're all in custody. Brandon sinks into a seat, exhaustion claiming him now that his mission is complete. They caught me about 2 miles from where we separated, took me to the facility for questioning. They wanted to know what evidence we had, who we'd contacted. Did they hurt you? A grim smile crosses Brandon's face. They tried, but my grandfather taught me a thing or two about keeping quiet under pressure. Ramirez interrupts, professional but urgent. Mr. Davis, we need any information you can provide about the facility's current status. Personnel, weapons, potential hazards. Brandon straightens, shifting into the formal reporting style of his ranger training. 4 men inside, all armed with military-grade weapons. The lead scientist, a woman named Dr. Lawrence, was evacuated about an hour ago. They took something with them, a metal case heavily secured. The remaining personnel were ordered to destroy everything and trigger what they called Protocol Omega if compromised. Protocol Omega? Ramirez presses. I don't know the details, but they were preparing something at the TO site when the first FBI team was spotted. They mentioned remote activation and a demonstration of effectiveness. Marcus and Ramirez exchange alarmed glances. The thermal imagery still shows unusual activity around the nest structure, heat signatures that have been gradually intensifying over the past hour. It's a fail-safe, Marcus realizes. If they can't escape, they'll release whatever they've been developing, prove its effectiveness even as they're being captured. Ramirez immediately orders the tactical teams to pull back to a safer distance and calls for immediate deployment of the hazardous materials unit. But even as he speaks, the thermal imaging shows a critical change, the heat signatures around the nest spiking dramatically. They've activated something, Brandon says, voice tight with alarm. We don't have much time. Marcus studies the satellite imagery of the area, mind racing through possibilities. Years of ranger experience combined with military training, seeking a solution that might contain whatever is about to be released. The creek, he says suddenly, pointing to a small waterway that runs near the site. It feeds into the reservoir at Miller's Ridge. If they're deploying a toxin, that's how they'll disperse it, through the watershed. Brandon immediately sees the implication. The dam controls. If we close the floodgates at the north end, we can isolate that section of the watershed. Ramirez is already relaying orders, but the response comes back negative. The dam controls are manual, located at a station 2 miles from their position. Even at top speed, a team couldn't reach it in time. I know another way, Brandon says. An emergency access route the Park Service maintains. It cuts directly through the ridgeline. On an ATV, I could make it in under 10 minutes. Ramirez shakes his head. Too risky. We don't know exactly what's being deployed or its effective range. We don't have a choice, Marcus interjects. If that toxin reaches the reservoir, It could affect thousands of people downstream. The weight of the decision settles on Ramirez's shoulders. Risk one life or potentially thousands. With grim reluctance, he authorizes the attempt, ordering a hazmat suit for Brandon and immediate preparation of an ATV. "I'm going with him," Marcus states, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Two people can operate the controls faster than one, and I know those systems. Your ankle won't matter for this, and those are my woods, Commander. My responsibility." Minutes later, Marcus and Brandon race through the forest on a reinforced ATV, both wearing hazmat suits with limited oxygen supplies. The bulky protective gear makes movement awkward, but the alternative is unthinkable. Behind them, federal agents establish a containment perimeter, preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. The emergency access route lives up to Brandon's description: narrow, barely maintained, but cutting directly through terrain that would otherwise be impassable. The ATV's powerful engine strains against steep inclines and rough surfaces, but holds steady under Brandon's skilled handling. They reach the dam control station with minutes to spare, according to the command center's estimates. The small concrete building stands at the edge of the reservoir, its utilitarian design focused entirely on function rather than aesthetics. Inside, the control room is a testament to infrastructure from another era. Analog gauges, manual levers, systems designed to operate without electricity if necessary. Marcus moves immediately to the main control panel, his ranger training including emergency water management procedures. "We need to close floodgates 3 through 7, he instructs Brandon. "That will isolate the watershed connected to the creek near Site 5. They work in practice tandem, despite never having performed this specific task together. Marcus operating the main controls while Brandon confirms the gauge readings in secondary systems. The massive floodgates begin to close, steel barriers descending into the water with mechanical precision. "Containment at 40%, Brandon reports, watching the indicators. 60%, 80. The radio crackles with an urgent update from the command center. Thermal imaging shows a release event in progress at Site 5. Unknown substance dispersing in a northeasterly direction, directly toward your position. Marcus checks the gauges. The floodgates are at 90% closure, nearly complete but not yet fully sealed. How long do we have? Current wind patterns give you approximately 3 minutes before potential exposure. Recommend immediate evacuation once containment is confirmed. The final floodgate closes with a resonant clang that echoes through the control room. Brandon confirms full containment. The watershed is isolated. The potential contamination contained to a manageable area that can be treated without risking downstream communities. Let's move, Marcus orders, heading for the exit. Back to the ATV. We need to get clear of this area. Outside, the night has fully descended. The forest a sea of darkness, broken only by the beam of their ATV's headlight. They mount the vehicle, Brandon again taking the controls while Marcus holds on, his injured ankle making him the less capable driver. They've barely covered half a mile when the radio crackles again. Be advised, containment at Site 5 has been breached. 4 subjects attempted to flee the facility perimeter. 3 are in custody, but 1 has evaded capture and is heading in your direction. Considered armed and extremely dangerous. Brandon increases their speed, pushing the ATV to its limits along the narrow trail. The beam of the headlight bounces wildly over the uneven terrain, creating a disorienting strobe effect against the trees. Behind them, somewhere in the darkness, a desperate man with nothing left to lose pursues them through familiar territory. A sharp crack pierces the night. A gunshot, close enough that Marcus feels more than hears the bullet pass near his head. Brandon swerves instinctively, the ATV momentarily losing traction before he regains control. "Keep going," Marcus shouts above the engine noise. "Don't stop for anything." Another shot rings out, this one striking the ATV's rear cargo rack with a metallic ping. Their pursuer is closing the distance, using the ATV's headlight as a beacon to guide his aim. Brandon takes a sharp turn off the main trail, plunging them into an even narrower path where overhanging branches whip against their protective suits. It's a gamble, a more difficult route for their pursuer to follow, but also more challenging for them to navigate at speed. The gamble pays off temporarily. The shots cease as their pursuer loses sight of them in the denser forest, but the respite is brief. Their headlight still betrays their position to anyone following closely enough. Kill the light, Marcus orders. Night vision from here. Brandon switches off the headlight, immediately activating the night vision function on their protective masks. The world transforms into shades of green, less detailed but sufficient to navigate by for someone with Brandon's intimate knowledge of these woods. They continue in near silence, the ATV's engine muffled by the dense vegetation surrounding them. For several minutes, it seems they have successfully evaded pursuit. The trail begins to widen, suggesting they're approaching the main forest road that will lead them back to the command center. Then disaster strikes. A fallen tree, invisible until they're nearly upon it, blocks the path completely. Brandon brakes hard, bringing the ATV to a skidding stop mere feet from the massive trunk. We'll have to go around, he says, already calculating an alternate route. But before they can turn, a figure emerges from the trees behind them. Even in the green-tinted vision of their masks, Marcus recognizes Richard Turner, the park director. His normally immaculate appearance is gone, replaced by a wild-eyed desperation. He levels a pistol at them with trembling hands. "Take off the suits," Turner demands, his voice cracking with strain. "Now!" Neither Marcus nor Brandon moves to comply. The protective suits are their only defense against whatever toxin might have been released, now potentially carried on Turner's clothing or skin. "It's over, Richard," Marcus says calmly. "The evidence is out. Federal prosecutors already have enough to put Blackwood and Holloway away for life. Surrender now and you might avoid the death penalty." Turner laughs, a brittle sound devoid of humor. "You think this ends with arrests? With trials? This goes so much deeper than you can imagine, Reed. Blackwood was just the local administrator for a program that spans decades, that reaches into the highest levels of government. Then testify. Tell the prosecutors what you know, who was involved. Turn state's evidence." Turner shakes his head, the gesture jerky and uncoordinated. "There's no deal big enough to protect me from what would happen. The people behind this, they don't allow loose ends." As he speaks, Marcus notices something alarming. Turner's skin, visible at his neckline and wrists, shows the beginning of the same discoloration Marcus observed on the body at the disposal site. Dark veining spreading beneath the surface, an unnatural pallor overtaking his complexion. "You've been exposed," Marcus realizes, "to the toxin." Turner's laugh turns into a cough, wet and ragged. "Ironic, isn't it? Decades of developing it, testing it on others, and now—" He doesn't finish the thought, but the implication is clear. "You know what this does to a person, Reed? It doesn't just kill you, it rewrites your neural pathways first. Breaks down the barriers between memory and imagination, between past and present. I'm seeing things, hearing voices, people we disposed of years ago, standing right beside you, watching me." His gun hand wavers, shifting slightly as if tracking movements only he can see. Marcus recognizes the opportunity in Turner's deteriorating condition, but also the danger. Hallucinations could make him more unpredictable, more likely to fire without warning. "You need medical attention," Marcus says, keeping his voice steady, reasonable. "Our people can help you. There might be an antidote, a treatment." Turner's eyes focus briefly, a moment of clarity amid his degeneration. "There isn't. That's the beauty of it. Untraceable once it runs its course, undetectable in standard autopsies, and absolutely irreversible once symptoms appear. The perfect weapon for perfect deniability." Brandon shifts slightly, positioning himself to potentially intervene if an opportunity presents itself. Turner immediately swings the gun toward him. "Don't. I may be dying, but I can still put a bullet in both of you before this takes me completely." "Then what do you want?" Marcus asks, trying to keep Turner's attention focused on him, away from Brandon. "If there's no treatment, no escape, what's your endgame here?" Turner's expression changes, calculation replacing desperation. "A trade, the two of you for a helicopter, for a head start. Enough time to reach certain people, to explain that I contained the situation, that I didn't talk. The FBI won't make that deal. They will if the alternative is finding your bodies in these woods." Turner's condition is visibly worsening even as he speaks, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool night air, his breathing becoming more labored. Whatever the toxin does, it works quickly once symptoms appear. Marcus's mind races, seeking a solution that doesn't end with more death. Turner is deteriorating rapidly, but still dangerous. Perhaps more dangerous as his rational thought processes break down. They need to keep him talking, to buy time for either the FBI to locate them or for the toxin to incapacitate Turner completely. "Tell me about Amy," Marcus says suddenly, the words emerging before he's fully considered them. "My wife. Was it you who ordered her killed?" The question seems to startle Turner, momentarily breaking through his deteriorating mental state. "Reed's wife? The photographer?" He shakes his head. "Not me. That was Holloway's call. She photographed one of the disposal sites, started asking questions about vegetation patterns. Too curious for her own good." The confirmation of what Marcus has suspected cuts deep, but he maintains his composure. "And Robert Mercer? Was that you?" Turner's face twists with something like regret. The journalist was different. He knew too much, had connected too many dots. "I argued for bringing him in, for offering him a place in the organization. His skills could have been valuable, but Blackwood wouldn't hear of it, said journalists can't be trusted, that they always think the public has a right to know." The last words are spoken with bitter mockery. As Turner speaks, Marcus notices Brandon slowly, imperceptibly shifting position, using the conversation as cover to maneuver closer to a fallen branch that could serve as a weapon. But Turner's deterioration might make a direct confrontation unnecessary. His gun hand is shaking more violently now, his focus clearly requiring increasing effort to maintain. "How many, Richard?" Marcus presses. "How many people have died to protect this secret?" Turner blinks rapidly, his gaze unfocused. "I don't. The records weren't my department. Dozens? Hundreds? Over the decades? The original program started in the 50s. Operation Nightshade. Testing limits of human endurance, psychological breaking points, chemical enhancement of interrogation techniques. Camp 14 was just one of several sites. His revelations spill out now, the toxins seemingly breaking down whatever mental barriers kept his secrets contained. After the congressional investigations in the 70s, everything went private. Blackwood Development provided the cover, the facilities, government contracts through shell companies, funding through black budgets, plausible deniability at every level. Turner's legs buckle suddenly, forcing him to brace himself against a tree. The gun remains pointed in their general direction, but his control is clearly failing. Dark fluid begins to leak from his nose, his eyes reddening as capillaries rupture. "The nest structures," Marcus continues, keeping him talking, while his condition deteriorates. "What were they for?" "Monitoring stations," Turner gasps. "Collecting data on environmental dispersion, contamination patterns. Each one covers a disposal site, records how the toxins interact with the ecosystem over time. Decades of data, proving the method works, leaves no trace." His words become more disjointed, his breathing more labored. The gun begins to lower as his strength fails. "Richard," Marcus says firmly, "put the gun down. It's over." For a moment, it seems Turner might comply, might surrender to the inevitable. Then something shifts in his expression, a final surge of desperate resolve. "Not like this," he whispers, raising the gun not toward Marcus or Brandon, but to his own temple. "Not by the toxin. My choice. My ending." For either man can react, Turner pulls the trigger. The sound is deafening in the quiet forest, a final punctuation to decades of secrets and crimes. Turner's body crumples to the forest floor, the weapon falling from lifeless fingers. Marcus and Brandon stand in stunned silence, the abrupt violence a stark contrast to the natural serenity of the surrounding forest. Even through the filters of their protective masks, the smell of gunpowder reaches them, acrid and intrusive. "We need to report this," Brandon finally says, reaching for his radio, "and we need to be checked for exposure, even with the suits." The next hours pass in a blur of activity. Hazmat teams secure Turner's body and the surrounding area. Marcus and Brandon undergo decontamination procedures, their protective suits carefully removed and contained. Blood samples taken to check for any sign of the toxin despite their precautions. By dawn, they receive confirmation. No exposure detected, no immediate danger. The containment measures at the dam successfully prevented widespread dispersion of the toxin, limiting the potential damage to a manageable area that can be properly decontaminated. At Carlton Medical Center, Marcus finally reunites with Sarah, who has been monitoring Elena Vasquez's condition. The anthropologist is shaken but recovering, having been held for questioning at a Blackwood facility before federal agents located and freed her. The doctors say she'll be fine, Sarah tells him, exhaustion evident in her voice but relief in her eyes. Physically, at least. The psychological impact of what she experienced, that may take longer to heal. Marcus understands all too well. The revelations of the past days have torn open wounds he thought long healed, forced him to reconsider truths he had accepted years ago. Amy's death. Not a tragic accident, but a deliberate murder. The forest he loved and protected, not just wilderness, but a burial ground for unspeakable crimes. What happens now? Sarah asks as they sit in the hospital's quiet waiting room, the first moment of calm they've experienced since this began. Federal prosecutors are building their case. With Turner's death and the evidence we uncovered, they'll focus on Blackwood, Holloway, and whoever else was involved locally. As for the broader conspiracy Turner mentioned, that's beyond our reach for now. Sarah nods, understanding the boundaries of what they have accomplished and what remains to be done. Robert would be satisfied, I think. Not completely. He always wanted the whole truth, every last detail. But knowing his work finally exposed the truth, brought some measure of justice, he would consider that a victory. The mention of Robert brings a question to Marcus's mind, one that has lingered beneath the surface of their shared ordeal. What will you do after all this? Go back to teaching? Sarah considers this, her academic precision giving way to something more personal, more uncertain. I don't know. The university has offered me a leave of absence to process recent events. Academics speak for take time to deal with your trauma. She offers a small smile. I might write a book about Robert's investigation, ensure his work is properly documented. After that, I'm not sure. Whatever you decide, Marcus says quietly, you've honored your brother's memory. You finished what he started. The moment is interrupted by the arrival of Agent Devlin, who brings updates on the federal investigation. The scale of what they have uncovered continues to expand, more victims identified, more connections revealed between Blackwood's operations and government contracts. We've secured all 7 sites, Devlin informs them. Recovery teams are processing evidence, and we've begun identifying the remains. It will take months, possibly years, to complete the full investigation and ensure every victim is accounted for. And Blackwood, Holloway, Marcus asks, facing multiple federal charges. The evidence is overwhelming. Financial records, operational documents, eyewitness testimonies. Their attorneys are already discussing plea deals, offering information in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. The conversation turns to practical matters, witness protection considerations, upcoming grand jury proceedings, the media attention that continues to intensify as more details emerge about what some outlets are already calling the Black Pine conspiracy. Through it all, Marcus feels strangely detached, as if watching events unfold from a distance. The ranger, the protector, the husband who grieved an accident, these versions of himself seem to belong to another lifetime. Who is he now in the aftermath of these revelations? What path lies ahead? 3 weeks later, Marcus stands at the edge of Black Pine Forest, watching as the morning sun filters through the ancient trees. The federal investigation continues, parts of the park remaining closed to the public as evidence recovery teams complete their work. But life in Pinecrest is slowly finding a new normal, a community coming to terms with the darkness that existed in its midst for generations. Brandon approaches, his ranger uniform crisp and professional, his youthful face more serious than before these events, but no less determined. He has been appointed acting park director following Turner's death, tasked with rebuilding the park service's integrity and public trust. The restoration teams are making good progress, Brandon reports. Environmental specialists say the contamination was contained to the areas we identified. With proper treatment, the forest will heal. Marcus nods, appreciating the symbolism as well as the practical information. Healing, for the land, for the community, for those directly affected by these events. It will take time, require careful attention, but it is possible. I've been thinking about your offer, Marcus says, referring to Brandon's invitation to return to his ranger position once the investigation concludes. I'm grateful, but I don't think I can come back. Not yet. Maybe not ever. This forest, it's different for me now. Brandon understands. The offer stands whenever you're ready. If you're ready, the Park Service needs people with your integrity, Marcus, now more than ever. They walk together along the perimeter trail, discussing the changes being implemented, new oversight procedures, transparency measures, community involvement in park management, steps toward rebuilding what was broken, toward ensuring such corruption cannot take root again. As they reach the visitor center, Sarah's car pulls into the parking lot. She emerges carrying a box of documents, materials the FBI has cleared for her to use in the book she's begun writing about her brother's investigation. Her academic position has been adjusted to accommodate this new project, the university eager to support work that brings recognition and prestige. The three of them have formed an unlikely bond through their shared experience. The veteran ranger, the young protege, the scholarly sister of a fallen journalist. Different backgrounds, different perspectives, united by their commitment to truth and justice. I interviewed Elena yesterday, Sarah tells them as they help unload her research materials. Her analysis of the nest structures is fascinating. She believes they deliberately incorporated elements from local folklore to discourage investigation, playing on superstitions about cursed places in the forest. Hiding in plain sight, Marcus observes, using fear to keep people away. Their conversation continues inside the visitor center, now serving as a temporary headquarters for the park's restoration efforts. Maps cover the walls, showing the affected areas, the recovery progress, the future plans for memorial sites to honor those who died. As Sarah arranges her documents on a conference table, a small item falls from one of the folders. A photograph, slightly faded with age. Marcus picks it up and his breath catches. Amy smiles back at him from the image, standing proudly beside a conservation award she had received shortly before her death. I found that in Robert's files, Sarah explains gently. He interviewed her for an article about environmental protection efforts. He described her as passionately committed to preserving natural spaces for future generations. Marcus traces the outline of Amy's face with a finger, memory and grief mingling with the new understanding of her death. Not a random tragedy, but a deliberate silencing. The knowledge brings pain, but also clarity, a final piece of truth that allows for proper mourning, for eventual closure. She would be proud of what you've done, Sarah says softly, exposing the truth, protecting others from harm, finishing what she unknowingly started. The observation resonates deeply. In his grief, Marcus had maintained Amy's garden at their cabin, had continued her small conservation projects as a way of honoring her memory, but exposing the truth behind her death, preventing others from suffering similar fates. This is a more meaningful tribute, a more lasting legacy. 6 months later, a small gathering assembles at the newly dedicated Memorial Grove within Black Pine National Park. The 7 sites that once marked places of death and concealment have been transformed into a single place of remembrance and reflection. Native plants surround a simple stone monument inscribed with the names of those identified as victims, with space left for others as the investigation continues to uncover the full extent of the crimes. Marcus stands beside Sarah as the dedication ceremony concludes, visitors placing flowers at the base of the monument. Brandon, now officially confirmed as the new park director, has overseen the creation of this space with sensitivity and respect, ensuring it serves both as memorial and reminder of lives lost, of justice delayed but ultimately served, of the community's commitment to truth and accountability. Robert's book is being premiered next week, Sarah mentions, referring to the work she compiled from her brother's notes and research, completed with her own findings. The publisher says pre-orders are substantial. People want to understand what happened here. And your next project? Marcus asks. Sarah smiles, a hint of her academic enthusiasm returning. Environmental justice. How corporate interests exploit rural communities, use isolation and economic dependence to conceal harmful practices. Robert's work exposed one instance, but it's a nationwide pattern. Their conversation is interrupted by the arrival of Elena Vasquez, now directing a university research project documenting the cultural and historical impacts of the Black Pine revelations. Her work has expanded to include oral histories from community members, preserving their experiences and perspectives for future generations. The County Historical Society voted unanimously to include the full story in their official records, Elena reports. No sanitized version, no protective omissions. The complete truth, however uncomfortable. The three colleagues, now friends, continue their discussion as they walk through the memorial grove. Each has found a way forward from the trauma they experienced. Sarah through writing and advocacy, Elena through documentation and education. For Marcus, the path has been less clear, his future still taking shape. After leaving the Park Service, he established a foundation in Amy's name, providing resources for investigative journalists and environmental whistleblowers. The work keeps him connected to her memory while creating something meaningful from tragedy, a way of ensuring that others with the courage to seek truth receive the support and protection they deserve. As the sun begins to set over Black Pine Forest, casting long shadows through the ancient trees, Marcus finds himself alone at the edge of the memorial grove. The visitors have departed, the ceremony concluded, leaving only the whisper of wind through branches and the distant call of birds returning to their nests for the night. He kneels beside a particular section of the monument, where Amy's name is now properly included among the victims. His fingers trace the engraved letters, connecting physically with this tangible acknowledgement of her fate. Not an accident, but a murder. Not random misfortune, but deliberate silencing. "I found the truth," he whispers, words meant only for her. "It took too long, and it came at a high cost. But they can't hide anymore. What happened to you, to Robert, to all the others, it's exposed now in the light." The forest around him seems to listen, the same forest that held these secrets for decades now, bearing witness to their revelation. There is peace in this moment, not the bull's peace of comforting lies or convenient explanations, but the harder, truer peace that comes from confronting reality, however painful. As Marcus rises to leave, he notices a small sapling growing near the memorial, an oak newly planted as part of the restoration effort. In time, it will grow tall and strong, its roots spreading deep into soil that has been cleansed of contamination, its branches reaching toward the sky. A living symbol of renewal, of nature's resilience, of the possibility of healing after harm. He rests his hand briefly on the slender trunk, feeling the life pulsing within it. Like this young tree, the future remains to be shaped by choices, by commitments, by the courage to face truth rather than hide from it. The events at Black Pine have changed him, changed all of them. The scars remain, but so does the strength gained through enduring, through persevering, through refusing to surrender to darkness. Marcus takes one final look at the forest as twilight deepens around him. The secrets have been exposed, the guilty brought to justice, the victims honored and remembered. The work of healing continues. For the land, for the community, for himself. It is enough. It has to be enough. He turns and walks toward the future, carrying with him the hard-won wisdom of one who has glimpsed humanity's capacity for both terrible darkness and remarkable courage. The forest's secret has been revealed, but its deeper truth remains, that even in places scarred by human cruelty, renewal is possible. That light eventually finds its way through even the densest canopy, that what is buried need not remain hidden forever. The truth once spoken cannot be unheard. And in that truth, however painful, lies the seed of healing, of justice, of a path forward through the wilderness of human experience.